Brian. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Dunstan.
Aye.
Commissioner Heady.
Here.
Commissioner Padilla is absent. Vice Chair Mercado.
Here.
Chair Rife.
I'm here. Okay, on the agenda, election of officers. It is still my turn.
Yes.
It's been 5 years I've waited.
I nominate for chair Foster Reeve.
Thank you. Someone else.
I will second.
Do we have to do a roll call vote?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Were you vice before?
No.
No, so we'll
So-
keep you on as vice,
Yeah.
and then we'll roll it back over. Okay. No, well, we'll just worry about
We're
that next
just
year.
doing the same for
Okay.
every year.
Okay, so I'll nominate Art for vice chair.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so just quick break. We usually just take turns unless someone really doesn't want to do it. So next year we'll just rotate. And of course, I'm always like I'm always the fifth guy a year, so I just have to hope that the city council takes me again if I ever do it again. So, okay. Brian's already got visions of grandeur in his head. I see that face before. Okay, appointment to committees. This is gonna be good. Okay, Community Block Grant Committee, that meets what, once a year?
Once a year, and sometimes we've transferred some of the public services to the county, so it really hasn't met, but we would still like a member to be available if we do need that. So it's not a large commitment of time.
I wouldn't mind.
Okay, we don't have
You
to,
just say
Do
all
the
in
vote at the end.
You don't, yeah,
we have to
pick them all and then you
Okay.
all can, but you don't have to make
all right,
motions or
visioning,
seconds.
who was on visioning before? Brian and was I on that?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you were.
Okay,
And that meets, and that's really kind of just a placeholder. That's not meeting now that we're going through this process, but we still want people on it in case we need to get it
so what
together.
is that gonna be moving forward? Like what's the?
We don't know. If we need to meet on something regarding the vision, we can convene it. Council is appointed of their members, so
Okay.
just as
Alright.
needed.
Well, I'll take that one, unless someone else.
And we
Dan,
need-
you-
It's
you
usually
got
two.
We need two.
Yeah, Brian,
No,
oh, I didn't
okay.
even ask you, I assume you just want to do it again?
Yeah, I'll do it again.
Okay.
It's fine with me.
Okay, cool. All right, there's two for that, and then anybody, I don't know, people were real strong on the green team last time, so I'm ambivalent. Do you, anybody?
on
I'll do it.
Okay, so we got Dan and, so Joe, I love Joe. Joe gets off the hook.
And what we could do, Chairman, is do a motion to approve the appointments to the committees as listed.
Okay, perfect. So I'll make a motion to approve to the committees as discussed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, okay, approval of minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December the 3rd.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to the new public hearing. So do I have to open and close it, right, Mark?
No, public comments
Public comments?
first. Public comment period first.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah. Got it, okay. I don't have any public comments, okay, got it. Consent calendar, none. Continue public hearings, new public hearings.
Let Andrea do a brief presentation, and then the procedure would be to open the public hearing, and if nobody wants to speak, just continue it to the February 18th meeting.
Okay?
Okay, yes.
Okay. I don't need to read it, right?
So story poles have not been erected in time for today's meeting, so the item will be continued to the February 18th Planning Commission meeting in order to meet the 30-day requirement prior to the meeting.
Okay, cool. Any questions for staff? No? Okay, I don't have any speaker slips for the continuation. Any comments? Okay, no. So we'll
Okay.
close public hearing.
No,
You need to
open
open
public
it.
Oh,
hearing.
I didn't open, well, I thought I asked. Okay, open, public hearings are open. Sorry, I
And
didn't say
then
that.
continue the open public hearing is the motion.
Okay, got it. So, okay, so make a motion to continue the public hearing until February the 18th.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you for decorum, Mark. All right, on to other business. And who is it? Is Irma or Mark, or who's the? Irma.
Yes, that would be me.
Okay.
We're waiting for the the curtain to...
So we're officially in the workshop now.
Yes, we are officially. Okay. Chairman Reif and members of the commission, tonight is a continuation of the Avenue of Flags Specific Plan workshop that the workshop number 1 was held on December 3rd, and at that time a number of items were discussed upon which the Planning Commission reached consensus, and there were items that were asked to be brought back for further detail and additional information. So I'd like to repeat the consensus items, and then we will get into an in-depth presentation on the response to the questions and the discussion and the additional information. So the consensus items that were the Planning Commission reached a consensus on several of the items, and I'll read off the yeses that everybody was generally in alignment with. Was the proposed road alignment and circulation that was proposed, basically showing 1 lane in either direction along the Avenue of Flags, with some traffic diets applied, a Sharrow lane for the bikes and the vehicles, and other traffic calming measures and pedestrian safety measures. Yes, on the roundabout at the southbound freeway off-ramp onto Avenue of Flags. This is desirable, and we will pursue this in the future phase pending discussions with Caltrans. Generally favorable for the medians to be used for public spaces with some modifications as was discussed last time, and we are bringing those ideas back to you. Yes on the form-based code, and we will get into a more in-depth discussion on that tonight as well. And the item that the Planning Commission generally did not like was the roundabout at Damasa, so that was not recommended. So with that, we'll move forward to the presentation tonight, which is in essence the attachments that you have been provided in your packet. We made sure that you had all the information, all the graphics and everything ahead of time so you could go through them. And I'm just going to be putting the displays up on the projector just for reference purposes only. So,
May I ask a fast question?
Absolutely.
I just want to understand, so the goal of tonight is to review the packet you've put together, provide any additional commentary.
Correct.
And you're going to continue to move forward with the third, you're going to take our commentary, roll it all together, and then go to the third visioning workshop. Is that the next step?
The next step would be to take the comments from tonight, as well as from last week, and forward them to the City Council.
Okay.
The City Council will have a workshop in February, at which time they will take a look at the concept and, in general terms, give us a go-ahead to proceed with coming up with the more specific details that we need to for the actual specific plan document.
Okay, and then what will be presented at the third visioning workshop?
So the third workshop, we will actually present a draft of the specific plan document.
Okay.
So this is the concept plan. If
I got it.
everybody's on board with the concepts that we're presenting, and the City Council feels comfortable with the direction that we're heading in, then we will move forward with the more detailed document. But we needed to have buy-in in general for where we're heading, and
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
Sure. So, all right. Attachment 1. We're starting with this just to give you an orientation of where we are in the plan, what areas we'll be talking about. It's important to keep in mind that the medians 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6 run from north to south. We will be referring to these later on in the presentation many times. And we're kind of relating the presentation median by median. I would also like to bring your attention to the potential redevelopment areas, which are basically parcels that we've identified that have the potential to be renovated, upgraded, or if they're vacant parcels, to be built upon. And please note that those are not only limited to frontages along the Avenue of Flags, but are spread throughout the entire specific plan area. We have taken these redevelopment areas as well as the median areas and prepared build-out projections, conceptual projections, but what we see as potential that could be built in these areas, and came up with a parking need, parking demand for the private projects that would possibly, potentially be built. And we did the same exercise for the medians. Medians 2, 3, and 4 have uses that are being proposed on them, and we made some assumptions on parking demands and came up with the parking need. We took a look at how much parking would be available on the medians and on the streets once it's reconfigured. And this is something that the Planning Commission had asked about last time, that they wanted to see, well, if those areas were built out, the build out, what kind of a parking need are we looking at? And that is represented up here by this number, and this is the redevelopment areas that correspond to that map that I showed you before. And this last column here, we're still working with this. There's potential on-site parking on each of these parcels that, they would need to provide X number of on-site parking per the code, but we're also looking at parking being one of the potential incentives that we would be offering as part of the Development Opportunity Reserve. So, that column is going to be a column that will be developed later on. So, this is pretty self-explanatory. It's all projections at this point.
So can we go back?
Absolutely.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a problem, right? Because you essentially are calculating 1258, 1325, and your current allotment as they're presenting is 335. And I understand what you're saying, that there's going to be some on-site parking, but probably nowhere near 1,000 spaces. So that's what I'm trying to get at. And I'm not saying we need to solve it tonight. I get it,
right.
But there needs to be some probably serious thought done at your level.
Right. So
Right.
typically, the municipal code would require developments to park it on site. That's our municipal code requirement. So as we develop the specific plan, we're going to be looking at what's feasible given the properties that we have in the specific plan area and how it can be parked and how the incentives can work. So,
Yeah, I get it, but I guess what I'm trying to get, I think, and maybe this is a better question. Is it the assumption, because I'm figuring it is an assumption, that a lot of that commercial areas you have allotted in your first chart probably won't have a lot of room, nor do we desire it to have a lot of room devoted to parking, because then you won't really have any buildings. We'll just be parking everywhere.
correct, in a sense. But maybe as we move through the concept plan, we can see where there may be some potential in some areas to provide parking as well,
Okay.
additional parking.
That's fine. I guess what I'm trying to get at, though, is I would like to see in the specific plan some sort of some sort of centralization of a parking requirement and removal of certain requirements for specific commercial developments to meet our standard parking requirement. Does that make sense? And I know there's a lot of trade-offs there. I'm not suggesting it be definitive or like zero sum or anything like that. Mark, you know what I'm trying to get at?
Well, and that's what the specific plan will do.
Okay.
We're just showing the numbers now because we don't want to go through all these iterations until we know where we need to go and get your comments.
That's why I'm providing the comment
Yeah.
now. I'm with you.
And that's perfect because
Okay.
we'll make sure that those items are addressed. Plus, this also gives us an idea of, well, if we are going to be planning for a city parking lot, for instance,
Yes.
or other parking needs, that gives us an idea of what the number is that we're looking for.
Mrs. Foster, I don't know if y'all agree, but I don't think we want a whole lot of every commercial development here to meet a huge parking requirement.
No.
Because then we won't have a
Parking garage or parking area.
central
Right.
parking
Exactly.
something or other.
But this
plan.
gives us the number that we're dealing with, so we know what to be
I-
planning for.
Okay, I just
So-
want to make the comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
And also, like, maybe parallel to this is that we don't impact the people who live on Second Street with, all of a sudden, they're impacted by parking because
Yes.
there's not enough available. So
Yes.
I think parallel to that, you need to come up with some sort of plan so that they're not parking in front of residents' houses. And I don't know what that looks like, 8 permits on there.
Okay.
Because you can't have visitors.
Very good. Yeah, those are very good comments that we will
Yeah,
definitely
I
be
know it's
addressing. Yep.
Early in the game.
Yep. Okay. The next slide is just to show you the process that we went through analyzing the configuration of the parking.
Irma, I'm sorry, I apologize. Not on class. What's the rules of engagement for the workshop? Anybody can come up and speak, or do they have to have a slip, or?
Well, anybody can come up and speak, but we like to slip so we have the record of who spoke, so.
Yeah, so for the group, you're more than welcome to come up and speak. You don't have to wait to the end or whatever. If you have a particular thought, a topic, you can.
Let's wait till the commission.
You want to wait to the end?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
All right.
we'll never get through.
Through it?
And then we can go back, but I mean, that's the
All right.
typical thing for the hearings.
Okay.
Okay. This table shows the process that we went through analyzing the existing parking, the loss and the gains that we would see by reconfiguring the medians and the parking along the roadways, and what the reconfigured parking is. The commission had asked about this, so we are able to show these numbers based upon the design that we have right now.
That's a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're gaining, which is great. Land use possibilities. Again, this chart came from the first workshop, the first public workshop that we had. We put together a list of potential land uses that fell within the visioning for the downtown. There may be some modification to this as we go along, but this is the general idea of the types of uses that we're looking at for the avenue. And this graphic represents the concept, the urban design concept that we have for the Avenue of Flags north of Highway 246. And as I mentioned in the staff report, we're focusing our graphics right now on this portion of the avenue, as it has the most potential of being a catalyst for development in some of the outerlying areas in the specific plan area as well. So we're focusing our graphics here, but as you can see from the prior charts, we have taken into consideration other parcels in the entire specific plan area in our planning process as well. So with this slide, we're going into the design aspect, and I would like to turn...
Just a question. So off of, I guess it's Damasa, what's the road, is that the on-ramp off to the right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you show the on-ramp leading into a parking lot or something, or is that just a continuation of a line that shouldn't be there?
Actually, it's a line that shouldn't be there.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, but I would like to turn over the mic to Greg Ravatt, head of our design team, and he will be going through the majority of the following slides.
Good evening. Greg Ravatt, architect, Chairman Reef, members of the commission. I've been working with our team. We listened to everything you had to say. We've tried to address everything you had to say. And we have a lot of information to show you tonight. I think we've made some progress. First of all, this overall plan kind of shows some new information that we haven't presented yet. You asked about form-based code, so this plan incorporates some form-based code planning that we're going to get into in kind of an introduction, and then we'll get into more detail later. But does this have a pointer on it?
Yes, this is red thing right up
Okay, okay, so you're going to see that this plan here, we've been focusing up until now on the medians 1 through 5 and what's going to go on in them. And we're continuing with that design and those concepts and trying to develop our parking and pedestrian and all the great things that are going to go in here. But we've also been, because you asked, started looking at adjacent parcels. And one thing that you notice right away that we notice, we have some very large parcels on the east, and then we have small parcels along the west. So part of the form-based code is to look at, what's the difference if you have a zoning ordinance, you're applying a zoning criteria to a property regardless of the lot size. In this case, a form-based code would work better. In one cases, we can develop a form-based code for small lots and a form-based code for larger lots. Small lots may not be required to have parking. Large lots may or may not, depending on what your decision is. In this case, we are showing some circulation and parking, and these are not necessarily scientific. They are close to what the zoning ordinance has, depending on what's proposed in terms of the density of buildings along the avenue. One thing that I want to point out is we've coded these down here. And this is just a concept, meaning that any designer could come up with a multitude of variations of this concept. But the important part is to start looking at different form-based building types. So we're looking at, in this case, residential, mercantile, courtyard. P is proposed, so we've got some, like this building is coming forward, these residential are coming forward, so we've color-coded so you can look at existing buildings that are going to be going in pretty quickly, and then how that might be, how these buildings might be clustered, knowing that this is coming forward. Now, the one thing that this is showing is just a concept of how you might cluster a residential form-based building versus a mercantile, and then we've introduced some larger buildings that we're calling courtyard buildings. But what you're really seeing is that we can start creating what we would call the backbone of a downtown. So we're creating a streetscape by introducing building forms and types along the boulevard. Mercantile building is going to be promoting office or retail or restaurant. It wouldn't necessarily, or would not be, well, we're proposing right now, would not be allowed to have residential on the ground floor. It could be a mixed-use building on other levels. Residential, because we want to create activities along the avenue, that form may have residential on second, third floor, but it may be office or retail or something else. But it's a smaller building, so it lends itself more to residential clusters. Can I advance with this too?
Yeah, pull the trigger, it goes forward.
Yeah.
And if you want to go backwards, tell me.
Okay. So, summarizing again, we did that little concept sketch, but this is showing the different redevelopment areas. So, and this is just a suggestion. We're getting started, so we're suggesting in this workshop tonight 3 lot types as an example. Lot type A is a larger lot that would be a cluster development. We're suggesting that those form-based codes might have the clustering along the avenue of buildings, and they may have there is parking. The parking would be on the back as opposed to parking on the front versus buildings on the back to create that downtown. And so these have special criteria that will be associated with them. A lot type B would be an infill lot. That could be a mercantile building. It could be a residential building. But it would be 0 lot line, and maybe if you felt like it was appropriate, it might not have parking or it might have minimal parking. That would be mostly alley loaded. And we have several redevelopment areas here. Now, we have this area 1, which we haven't talked about too much. It's kind of auto-related, so that's kind of might become a special form-based code too. So we might apply the same form-based code that we're applying to these lots in 2A and 2B. Okay. And then, of course, think about that. The median also becomes kind of a form-based code because we're trying to create a certain ambience and architecture within the medians. So that becomes something that future design teams will use as a precedence. Okay. I think I got the hang of this. So this is just kind of a concept study. This slide up here is showing the introduction of form-based code. Application is clustering like residential, which might have residential on the, form-based residence. We might have residential on the top 2 floors, commercial on the ground floor. Our mercantile building, which might be clustered. Now, any one of these buildings can have their own architecture. So you apply the architectural styles to the form. But what are we trying to do? We're trying to make sure that there's some cadence here. We don't end up with a 300-foot long building that's just one single facade. We're trying to make sure that there is variation, that the buildings are set close to the street, so we create a downtown. You can set them back within criteria that you will decide. This cluster is at, let's see, where am I? Oh, this is the Chumash houses, these little white blocks in the back. So this is kind of, again, suggesting. And the idea is that you can take a building type that's conducive to creating courtyards. For instance, this one has an internal courtyard. And then this third slide is just a suggestion. This is out now at 2nd Street. So we've got this important node here that's going to be, potentially a future plaza, civic center in the median, and then we can apply a form-based code that might suggest a larger building there. That could be a civic building, it could be a larger retail building, it could be a larger restaurant building. The criteria is that we would encourage a plaza or courtyard in that space, which is what you've been wanting to kind of energize the street. So we don't end up with a building that's zero lot line with no opportunities for larger plaza areas. When we get down here to the Mercantile, we're going to probably say we don't want huge plaza areas in front because we want the building to engage the street. We want, street side dining, but heck, maybe we can set it back 10 feet and get a little bit larger streetscape if that's what you decide to do. So this is showing variations in plane that would be allowed and suggested. And then on top of this, we would apply architectural styles. So this is just trying to develop that vocabulary of a street building that's aligned with the street. Minimal setbacks, so we have a downtown type development. Okay. This was again just kind of showing that I'm going over some information, but this would be on the west side. So we have that kind of curious circumstance of so many completely different opportunities, one on the west, one on the east. The east side we have these, the west side we have these small infill lots that there is sort of a streetscape or downtown zero lot line starting to happen on the east side. It will take time, as properties develop. If a building was to wear out or we have a vacant lot, they would apply a Mercantile type building that would be encourage the zero lot line. Any questions yet? No? Okay, I'm going to keep going then. So this is kind of an idea that this is a first pass on our Mercantile building. Now this kind of looks like a downtown building in a lot of downtowns. And it's intended to kind of look that way, so we're not really telling anybody what it's going to look like. They would apply the architectural styles to this. So we're keeping it kind of generic. But the idea would be that we would have a building that's along the sidewalk. We would encourage them to build up to the street. We would discourage them from having large site setbacks, but they may be allowed to have them. Depending if there was parking in the back, there may be a driveway allowed or not. In this case, we're showing an alley access because on the west side we have a lot of alley access. Mercantile buildings, we're suggesting, and we're calling this a lot size. So a lot width would vary between 50 and 100 feet, lot depth between 100 foot to 150 feet. So the idea is that you could maybe, potentially a developer would actually create a lot that size on the east side, or it might already exist on the west side. But if they didn't create a lot, at least it would kind of create a building massing that was about approximately that size. So that gives them a fairly large variation, 50 to 100 feet wide, 100 to 150 feet deep. And then, of course, any design could break that mold if there was a reason to break it. But the idea is to encourage clustering, encourage sidewalk-type activities, buildings right on the back of the sidewalk. Let's see if there's anything. Any permitted uses would be allowed. Off-street parking may or may not. In this case, we're suggesting it would be, if you did provide parking, it would be in the back. And we get into the form-based vocabulary. That's another way that we encourage variation in the facade of the building. So we'll go into that. We talked about that, I think, in a previous meeting. But these buildings could have courtyards. They could have They could have a yard, so in other words, they'd be allowed to have a yard. They could set the building back if they wanted to have a restaurant and they wanted to have a little bit more sidewalk. But it would be limited, so you wouldn't have like 100 feet back. Arcades would be allowed. Horizontal mixed use is, you could have variations of uses on the ground floor. Vertical mixed use would be that we could have residential on the upper floors if you decided that was reasonable, and they could apply a mixed use formula. Okay, so a live-work building, I call this a residential, but it's, so the actual form-based code is a live-work. The idea is that in this case we would have, typically it might be office on the ground floor, or it might be retail. It could even be restaurant. The idea is that the buildings are smaller, as we're encouraging residential on the upper floors. And this is a case where you do a smaller building form, and you cluster them, and maybe you allow 3 stories, because right now we wouldn't necessarily be allowed 3 stories. We'd have smaller lots, so when you're clustering, your cluster would be 30 to 50 feet, lot depth would be 60 to 100, so it's encouraging a smaller scale. And we're seeing that as a strategy for massing, creating a smaller scale. No side setbacks, 0 lot lines encouraged. But again, there's always exceptions. If you need a driveway to get to parking, that would be an exception. Buildings would be placed on the front property line, span the width of the lot, 4 may be set back from property line a maximum of 10 feet. So the idea is, again, to kind of encourage this pedestrian flexibility. You could create a cluster of these that had a courtyard facing the street, for example.
Greg, is there some reason you're centered on the 2-story vice a 3-story or whatever? I thought when we've discussed this area in the past.
The idea was to have the flexibility if you decided that to go 3 stories, and one of the opportunities in like this building type is it's a smaller scale. So you say, well, if you do a smaller scale building and you do a live-work building type, you can go to 3 stories.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't necessarily speaking to this particular form. I just was in general. What did we do in the? We discussed the
We
height.
didn't talk about stories, we just did height.
What was the height we decided in the last meeting? I don't think we discussed that.
Decided on the specific
Right.
height. We did talk about the stories, I remember, and we did
Yes.
mention that the 3rd stories would be perhaps set back and would be part of the incentive program also to,
Yeah, the economic incentive program, there's a possibility to go up to 45 feet if they give us certain incentives, and that's a little later, but that's kind of the
So
direction.
the standard is 2. If they want 3, we have to negotiate essentially.
Well, no,
Incentivize.
Vintage Walk is 3 stories.
Yeah, I know. That's
But
what
but it's within the height limit of the avenue. So you can still get 3 stories within the height limit of the avenue.
What's the height limit of the avenue?
I believe that's 35.
What's the height limit everywhere else?
Some areas are 45.
Yeah, so why is our downtown area shorter than everywhere else?
Well, that's what we're trying to increase, to get it a little higher as incentives, that if you do something, you can have higher heights in the downtown area.
I guess what I'm trying to get at, wouldn't our downtown area be flipped, right? Shouldn't our downtown area be generally taller than the other areas?
Yes.
So is my logic flawed? Am I making sense to myself alone? Because that happens a lot.
Well, the way, when we did the mixed-use ordinance, the council was not thrilled with higher building heights in the downtown area. So that's why we're at this particular stage. We
Okay.
can go higher, but we
Well,
want, maybe the incentive program is the way we want to go with the higher.
I mean, that's my thought. Let's talk about it as a team, and if we can form consensus, the city council can always shoot us down later. Dan, you got thoughts on?
Well, I don't know if this is where we need to tackle this. I'd ask Mark that.
Now or later?
Well, if we're recommending that instead of an incentive of 45, you allow the 45,
Right.
that would be what we need to know from the
And
commission.
that's the highest it's been in the city is 45?
Right, so you can go higher than 45, but, I mean, that's the maximum in town for
What's 45 feet in town?
Marriott.
Vintage Walk?
Marriott.
What's Vintage Walk?
I think it was about 35.
Marriott.
Marriott's
Pretty high, man. But they're also
recessed.
recessed. Yeah, right.
So you gotta-
Considerably recessed.
Yeah, they're kind of an average, but they're 45.
I don't know. I'm game with that. I mean, I live close. I think I live closer than all of y'all to that, and I'm still okay with it.
But
what's your thought, Dan?
Well, I question it, if we don't have it as an incentive, then there's no reason for them to give us anything back to us. So if we hold it as one of our chips, that will give you, if you do this for us, if we just say it's 45 feet, then there's no reason for them to give anything to us.
Well, but there's other incentives. I mean, we don't need to incentive.
That seems like a big one, though. I mean, that's another story on a building. So that's just my thought. I'm not sure. I'd rather hold the poker chip.
All right, what's your part?
Well, I think we should go, I like to see it higher. I think that's, I mean, I understand the incentives about getting things, but if we go in and all these developers think, well, the only way we're going to do something is we have to
Deal.
Yeah. I think I mean, maybe he can enlighten us. Do you think that's something where it's more of a chip or bargaining chip versus let's just have it, they know what going in, what is expected?
I think the idea is that with the form-based code is that we're going to give them an incentive that it would be a trade-off on a third story. So they may, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. They may say, well, if you do a third story, you got to set it back like Vintage Walk, or you may, have other trade-offs. That's part. We're going to go through the detail of the form-based code. These are the building types.
Right.
And,
I think we still need to.
That's where you control it.
Yeah, but we still have to form a consensus. I still got to make a recommendation to form a
Right.
consensus. Whether I do it now or in 2 slides, right?
Well, no, I think you're making a good point.
Okay. Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it, Brian. Brian.
I think incentivizing is a good idea. I also like the step back idea, because one of the things that I love about our community is the fact that we have these mountains and this green area, especially this time of year, you're starting to see it. So to have some kind of natural light and that ability to come in, I think is a good idea. So if we're going to offer a third story, have it be a step back. Maybe you can get the second story up front, and then the third story would be set back 15, 20 feet or whatever is traditional in that regard. So that would be kind of where my mind
All right. So
would be open to.
Well, so I think we're agreeing with that, but I think the difference is whether you can even allow the 45 height period without an incentivization.
I think the incentive is something we should look into.
So you don't think it should be 45 feet flat. The only way they get it is with an incentive. So they have to.
Or maybe we offer the 45 with that step back, and then if the incentive would be you don't have to do the step back.
Well, I think they're all going to have. I think all the third floors, stuff like that, are going to have serious setbacks. That's going to be that's standard now.
Okay.
You can't just build a wall 45 feet high. Correct, Mark. Help me out. Is that true?
But that would be part of the form-based code. See,
That's correct, because even currently, our code doesn't, if you go higher, is stepped
Our
back.
code doesn't even allow it currently.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So
So
am I
how
hearing-
about
I
we-
think I'm hearing three and one. No offense, Dan.
Okay.
I think I lost a lot last time, so you're down one this time.
But we can, when we go to council, we will inform them of the discussion that,
Yeah, copy.
the chair kind of wanted this way and the others wanted it this way, and the council can kind of debate it and finish that up.
Well, I think we're all in consensus except for Dan that we're all okay with 45 feet, non-incentivized, assuming there's other. You're giving me a weird look. He's okay with it?
I thought Vice Chair Mercado wanted the incentives.
No.
I'm sorry.
Neither did he. As long as it's meeting the breakup of the third floor.
So we will relay your position.
Sure.
Yeah.
The lone dissenter. All right. All right. Sorry, Greg.
So
Thank you.
Are you good, Irma?
Dan would be incentivize for the height.
Incentivize the third 40.
Incentivize
the
for the third
35 to
floor.
45.
Okay.
So we're calling this form the courtyard building type, which we were showing on 2nd Street. There's two sites that we were recommending for that. This is showing a larger building. This has a frontage of 120 to 180 feet, depth of 100 to 180. Side setbacks are allowed. Building form and placement, we're encouraging. This is showing a courtyard, but it could be a corner plaza or any other. The idea is to create public space. So it's encouraging this form is encouraging public space. Now, we showed civic. It doesn't have to be. There's also other reasons to have large buildings. This building type on that size lot was about 20,000 square feet. We kind of had it in our mind, two-story building. The Mercantile is about 10,000. This building is about 20,000. That can vary, but that was just kind of the form that we used. So these are the three building types we used. And this is the form-based school care that we talked about. So these are allowable form-based vocabulary that you can apply to each building. So we have, if you say it's allowed, you can have a courtyard corner, here's a courtyard center. And some of the things that we're doing that I think are important to look at is, if you have a raised courtyard, how far can it be raised up? If it's raised up 10 feet, it doesn't really become, first of all, it doesn't probably meet the state codes, but it doesn't really engage the street. So we were suggesting a maximum of 2 feet up. And then also a depth to width ratio, so no more than 50% of the width and the same depth. These can be modified. That's the idea of creating these. This is a yard, so this is suggesting a setback that we can apply. You would say, well, you can't set it back more than, and then this would be the diagram. You can't go vertical more than, and we're suggesting 2 feet. Arcades are where the building is set back, which would probably have a maximum, but it's covered, and with a colonnade. Some of the other form-based that we may look at, we just talked about it. This is kind of addressing the 3-story. I think it needs to be developed further.
Can I ask you a question on these?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the courtyards? So if I'm a developer, I guess, and this is where I'm going to defer to your, that's going to defer to your experience, I suppose. But if I'm a developer, why would I jump to build one of these when I'm giving away significant chunks of when my partner next door in the Mercantile area doesn't need to devote any of his land to, you see what I'm saying? What does this guy get, you see what I'm getting at?
We haven't developed the incentives,
Okay.
but the form-based code is going to say you got to do it.
Yeah.
If you're on, I'm sorry, I went backwards.
Trigger goes forward.
No, that's okay.
only.
That's okay.
So
If you
on Second Street.
are on that lot that applies that form-based, and it's the courtyard, you have to provide some form of a public space.
No,
You can make it flexible in a lot of different ways, but that's applied to that space. Why would you want it?
yeah.
I think somebody would want it because they want to have on Second Street, they would want to probably have a civic building or a large building that kind of addresses the public. We could think of like a larger restaurant, maybe several restaurants. So there would be, the developer would look at that and say, well, I got to do that. And developers do this all the time. They would say, well, I have to have a courtyard on this, so what am I going to do? I'm going to design a bunch of restaurants around a courtyard, and I'm going to use that to
Put seating
bring
or
people in.
something? Okay.
So it just becomes, you're creating, now, did they come up with that on their own? Probably. Would they? Maybe.
So that's legal to put, say, tables and chairs or whatever on the quote-unquote public space? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, we create a public space that could be flexible. It could be a civic public space. It could be a private public space.
Okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
I went back to this.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we're kind of going
Yeah.
this one. So this was kind of the one, I think, on the right. This is kind of that one we're talking about. If you go 3 stories and that has to be set back. This is like vintage walk. Or maybe it's just you set back the first one. These are different options to go 3 stories. Vertical mixed use, if we had, I think the idea here, and it might be applied in different ways, if we decided that we were going to do the live work, we may decide if it's a 50-foot frontage, it has to set back. It might be facade standards where we want to break up the front of the building. So this would encourage or require stepping on a vertical mixed use. I'll get into the meeting design, which we spent a lot of time on, and we're continuing to evolve that. So the way we kind of approach the median design now at this stage is we've designed a lot of the buildings. I think they're pretty close to what people are thinking is the direction. But we want to point out that they're not necessarily fixed. We're not building these tomorrow. So the idea is it becomes, again, a form-based code. So the idea on median 2 is we're going to have the event barn, a kiosk, circulation canopies, and this would go into your specific plan as part of your form-based code so that when down the road that this is kind of like, this is the accepted plan. So we're going to say, well, within that, we're going to have a event building that's about this big and sort of looks like this. And maybe somebody says, I really love this and this is what it's going to look like. Or maybe it gets changed a little bit. So it becomes part of the form-based vocabulary that is it's your blueprint for design in the future. Median 3, we're showing the pavilion, and this is a restroom building, the kiosks, which we'll go into that a little bit more, and the amphitheater. And then median 4, we're showing the art and food court, trellis and canopy. And we're going to get into these buildings in a little bit. We have some renderings at the end of all of these. Okay, so the way we're approaching these, Art and Food Village, this is a new building you haven't really seen, but the idea is to create, let me just go back a minute. So where were we? This is the Art and Food Village. So we've created, this is new to you. We created this since last meeting. So the idea was to create a building courtyard that would block wind. The buildings would be a smaller scale, and you could kind of park along the median or off, away from the median, and walk to the site and start on one end and kind of walk through the whole thing. So the idea is we have these kind of several little trellis type buildings and canopies, and you could just set up any kind of event you wanted there. Kind of focus. We're focusing on this median, art and food. And the idea would be that it would be kind of blocked. It would block the wind. It would kind of create a little bit more of an intimate feeling. Okay. So that's this building here, which we're just showing the building form in this image. This is a commons building that we talked about that would house several potential uses. The visitor center was one. Remember, we have you know everything that's in that. We talked about it doesn't have to be any specific use. We were talking about the historical society, visitor center. We're thinking of this as like it's not a huge building, but 2,800 square feet, has a second story. So you'd have several potential uses. It would be like a evolving type of community building.
We've got a little bit more detail on it later on, but I mean, I can throw out some of those. I mean,
it was in the packet.
Yeah. So,
cafe, there was a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we put a cafe in.
Yeah, things are.
Like that. So the restroom building, this is kind of what we're showing now is kind of open. So this is based on kind of a restroom that has large events, large crowds. So you have the sinks are in the center, the toilets on either side, so it's meant for events. The event barn concept here is a kind of a pole barn structure. It's agrarian. Pavilion, this is at 2nd Street. So the idea was there was some discussion at the last meeting that we didn't want to make sure it didn't look like Solvang. So we're kind of, if you notice, we're kind of using a craftsman-based architecture throughout the median. We kind of felt like that was kind of where the avenue was going. I know that we got a lot of different design styles, but just for the median, we're trying to stick to kind of more craftsman.
I had a question on that. So do you want to wait till we get to the design styles, or do you want to talk about it here? Is there some reason you've decided on craftsman? That's really what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, there was. Because we were designing the buildings. And why did we do that?
Yeah.
Because there's so many buildings that are existing along that area that, in my opinion, we're not going to do a Scandinavian. We talked about that. So Craftsman seems to be kind of a
middle of the road. Like middle of the road?
Actually, no. I think it kind of defines your community. I mean, that's kind of the way we saw it as a design team. So it seems to be acceptable to a lot of people.
Okay.
And it's not. It doesn't scream out, I'm different, necessarily. So it seems to kind of create pretty strong imagery throughout the avenue.
Okay.
I mean, you could go Art Deco.
Well, I don't know. My thing is we have 5 or 6 design styles, but we have one design style that the city's picking up the tab for on every building.
Well, and then again, it's a form-based code, so there is an allowance to redesign this down the road.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, nonetheless, when you present it like this, I don't think we're going to reinvent the wheel down the road. So that's why I'm trying to.
Well,
like some things we, like, I like the way you did the event barn. I'm not sure there's multiple ways you can read it. Like, I'm not sure an event barn executes in 50s diner, right? I got it. But, like, the rotunda, I think, is a good example, because I think we spent a lot of time talking about how we wanted the rotunda to not look like Solvang's Rotunda, and yet it looks just like Solvang's Rotunda. And I'm not bagging on it, because I think this, so far, like, this presentation is awesome. Like, I have very few comments, which is rare.
We did look at Solvang's Rotunda. It doesn't look like this. But unless I'm wrong, I mean,
Actually, I like this one better because I like the cupola.
it's what? I think it looks a lot more.
I'm not gonna make fun of you, Art. You better take that back, son.
I think Solvang. Well, I could be wrong. So I think Solvang's is a lot more Victorian.
A lot more what?
Oh, it is.
Victorian.
Victorian.
Yeah, Victorian, Scandinavian. It's got. This is pretty solid. We got rock base on the. Whoops, sorry.
Want to go back?
Doing it again.
Well,
So it's got a rock base on it. Pretty massive columns.
I thought
Detail brackets all the way around.
didn't we talk about trying to take advantage of at least having one? And I thought the idea was to have and please guys jump in, but didn't we discuss it of having it like, I'm not gonna use the word Art Deco, I think that's incorrect, but more artsy maybe, and a little more unique to the flavor of Buellton with some, I don't know, copper, something, I don't know, I'm not an artist.
We should put some copper on it.
Yeah.
I think
Corrugated roof, I don't know.
I think it can evolve. You know, we
should have been
from the
clear
last
that way.
meeting, we had an octagon, which I think is what Solvang has. This is now a rectangle where we kept the round base. You know, it can go a different direction if you guys want in the future when it actually becomes a project that you're going to build.
No, I
And what you
understand.
sound like is more agrarian type of
I don't
architecture
care
than
if it's-
craftsman.
I don't care if it's agrarian. I want it to be. I don't want it to look like a standard pavilion. I want it to look like it's unique, like it's Buellton's unique pavilion. And I'm just not getting the. You know, if this is the stuff we're kind of paying for, like I think that it needs to look like it's Buellton. I want people to drive through there and be like, oh, you know what? This is Buellton. And right now I'm driving through there and like, you know what? This is looking like you know, it's like. I'm not saying it's ugly. That's not what I'm trying to imply. It just looks generic.
I understand. So we have some renderings at the. Have you looked at the renderings?
Yeah, I've looked
Still
at.
feel the same?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I brought. I mean, I'm very consistent. I think I said the same thing. I don't know. Is that? Well, before we continue, this is. Am I losing this one?
No.
Does
Like I said, I
anybody
like.
agree? Dan?
You know, I'm not opposed to it. I'll have to say that. You know, it's unique enough. It doesn't look like Solvang's to me. You know, I think it needs a little refinement, but I'm not opposed to it. I don't know how you're going to say Buellton other than. I'm not sure. You know, maybe if you could come up with what you think Buellton is.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Maybe a mix of agrarian, maybe Martride. I don't know. I just not.
Well, you do have a mix of agrarian and craftsman styles. There's definitely. I mean, the pole barn is definitely craftsman.
Now the pole barn. You talking about the event barn?
I'm sorry, the event barn.
Well, let's hear what Art has to say.
Well, I like that. I think you could address it more with the copper cupola. I like copper. It's just.
You just like saying cupola. It's like the fourth time.
But I mean, because I like that. I come from where your barns are like that, and it adds ventilation. So if you're standing under there and it's really hot, and if that cupola works, you're going to have some ventilation. So it's practical. You dress it up by adding the copper up on top, your downspouts and
Copper on what facility again?
on the pavilion. The pavilion. You can add to the art barn too, but that's just part of the. I like that. Like I said, this design's better than what we have in Solvang.
Yeah.
That's
I agree.
better.
I mean, the
I think that's what we were all trying to get. We didn't want to.
Yeah. The octagon
So-
definitely is like what you think of when you think of a building like that. So most of them are octagons.
Right.
Kind of Victorian.
So I think with the rock and the brick,
Yeah.
it's better.
Okay, well.
Would there be an opportunity to maybe change the base? Because right now it kind of looks like some of the columns are falling off.
So the palms are falling off.
So I don't know if the round base is really working for me right now. And it's also got some wasted
It's like
space
the
around
the Pantheon. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure. But I mean, you know, it's so small.
into
It's
the
hard. You
Greek
could probably test it out.
Okay.
I think you get my point. I think you do. I think I like where the event barn is. I'm not saying it's because it's agrarian, because clearly it is, but like, I don't know. I get the feeling from that. The rest, I don't know. Take that for what you will.
Okay.
I'd just like to comment, we did look at some fairly wide segment of pavilions, and there were some quite unique designs, but I think we felt that Buellton did.
Oh, that's fine. Oh. Bam! No, you're done now. Game over. There's no backing up there. Sold.
That's not the direction we wanted to go, but that Buellton wanted to have something that was representative of a solid downtown, and so we were looking at something like that. But I would just say that we can look at the architectural styles and see if maybe this is something that we'd like to have further input on once we get to building it.
Buellton flair. That's all I got to say.
Yeah,
You can allow, I think the idea when we're doing a form-based design or a specific plan is that you're creating an image, a level of quality, a direction, but it doesn't preclude, the design evolving. So I look at every one of these projects would probably get a relook, by whatever team at whatever year, because we're looking at a project that's probably going to take several years to create, right?
Yeah, I understand, but fair enough. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. So your point is well taken. The vendor building, this is kind of the smaller this is the kind of a pass-through window design. And I think this one's, it's 10 by 10 or 12 by 12. This is the, a little bit larger. I think this is a 12, it might be 15 by 15. This was a larger vendor. The idea this would have like an overhead door that would roll up and you have a counter. So it would be a little bit larger, might have a small restaurant in it.
These I really don't like. I just think they're ugly.
You don't think they're ugly?
Really ugly, yeah. Just my opinion.
We got bracketing.
I do.
On this.
They remind me of like those little houses that bad TV show has.
Which one?
The mini, like where they live in that 100-square-foot house or something like that.
Oh, like
they
tiny
all
homes?
look exactly the same, pretty much.
They look like tiny homes.
These all look. I mean, I don't know. I think we could do a lot. I think with these especially, you could do a lot with. Like, why not have one Art Deco and why not have one something else or whatever? I don't know. Maybe it's a bad idea, right? I don't know, but I don't think they should all look like this. Maybe it's a consistency. Maybe it's the copper cupola on every one of them. I don't know.
Copper cupolas, we can have those. Those are easy. There you go. But the idea was to create two vendor types. One would be a little bit larger than the other one. One might have a small restaurant.
Yeah.
You're not looking at any food prep, but you would basically prepare off-site and be able to serve within the vendor booth. Trellises, this is just kind of the trellis that we're using for the art and food pavilion. And then getting into facade standards, and we took a run at it. So the idea would be, we have the form-based code, we have the building types, we have the lot types. Facade standards still need to be addressed. So we've got avenue flags we're talking about. We have a building form, but now, how do you make that look attractive? So you're going to apply facade standards, and we're going to apply design standards. So this is showing, and I think this needs a little more development, but it's showing kind of how to break up a facade, window proportions, heights, openings at the ground level, arcades, that type of thing. So any questions on this one?
Yeah, I do. How come the facade standards are different than the design styles?
You want it? Okay.
No,
Talk about it.
I'm asking. That's a question.
So we got 6 design styles.
Peace,
now.
peace, brother.
Okay, so which one would you illustrate it in?
Look, you guys are the planner. You guys are staff. You guys are the experts, right?
I don't think that was his particular question. I think, or was it?
My question is, if we have 6 design styles,
Okay.
why are only 4 of them included in your facade standards?
Well, I think maybe
5
what's queuing it is the oh, I'm sorry. I keep doing that.
Yeah.
You can go back.
So we're showing brick. Maybe that needs to change too.
No. Like literally in the language you have written, you don't have all the design styles.
That is just an oversight.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
Moving on. Sorry. And I don't know. Look, I'm not saying I'm game for all these design styles, but I think this is what came from the workshops, right?
Right, and there is some problems with that because if you go to this slide, when we start talking about the diner, is probably going to be a one-of-a-kind. If you do one, if somebody did one, that's going to be a one-of-a-kind, probably in a specific, one lot might go that way. And some of the proportioning we do for facades really work better for traditional styles. And this is Art Deco is more of a modern style, so it's actually encouraging different types of proportioning systems than traditional. So it might have to have a separate facade.
Okay.
So if it,
So maybe it's a onesie twosie or whatever, essentially.
well, what's interesting is you look at like the agrarian and craftsman, in my opinion, and even ranch aren't all that different. Spanish style is fairly consistent. So we've got these. This is my opinion, okay? As
Yeah.
an architect. So this one is
Contemporary.
Contemporary ranch.
ranch, craftsman, and is this agrarian?
Yes.
Yes.
They're not that much different. I mean, they are, but the way we apply them in a modern sense is not that much different. So we've got, this Mission Revival style is definitely different. It's unique, and the Art Moderne is definitely unique. So I'm just pointing that out. Even though you got 6 design styles, you don't really have a lot of variation in 4 of them.
Well, do we want to specify maybe?
And I was going to bring up, are you interested in Mission Revival on the Avenue in the downtown area?
No.
No.
Sorry. All in favor?
No, I don't see
No?
it happening there.
Yeah,
Okay, so
that's why I wanted to bring
So
that.
everyone says no. So how about this then? How about we talk about it as a speaking in general. We go with, say, these 5, but if someone wants to do a unique building and say 50s diner, like, I don't know, that may be kind of cool. I'm not opposed to that.
So as we go with 4, agrarian,
Shaking your head.
craftsman, ranch,
Why?
and contemporary ranch.
We'll bring it up.
Even if we could talk, I
No,
would.
well, you'll go at,
Constantly.
you'll go at the end. You'll go at the end, I promise. We'll give you, there won't be a time limit. We'll be good to go. I don't know. I'm not, we could bring it up. Dan, thoughts on, do you want to cancel out? So Mission Revival, I think, was
Yeah, I
pretty clear.
think Mission Revival.
What about 50s Diner? You okay with the ones or 250 or no?
I think it'll stick out, and I'm not sure that's good or bad.
Okay.
But if we have the ability to have one there, and somebody wants to be bold and say, I'm going to have my Art Deco restaurant here, and let's give it a shot.
Okay.
I'd have to agree on that one.
Okay.
I like the ability to be very,
All right. That's a 4-0.
Well, then you even talked about some of the stuff on the median, having some variation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's within there. There's some ability to be. It's not too far outside of what kind of works.
Yeah, you don't have to be over the top.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have to all be craftsmen.
That's
It can be-
fair.
So Mission Revival's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Down to 5. Any questions about the 4 styles I pointed out being similar?
No.
Agreed.
But so can we comment in there about, like, maybe, I think we're all in agreement on they should be essentially, like, something like, overall the design style should be one of those 4 or 5 or whatever it is, and, there, 1 or 2 unique, I don't know, buildings or whatever may be authorized to have a design style of, I don't know, something like
50s and Art Deco.
something like that. However you want to phrase it, Mark. Okay.
Okay, so we have this is kind of an overall perspective, just kind of summarizing what we've shown. And this is the east side, west side here. This is that vintage walk. We kind of use that as a reference point for such a big building. So you're kind of seeing the massing of that and the center massing. Or kind of event center, this median, food truck, sorry. And then moving into this one, this is the 2nd Street here. This is kind of just suggesting, these are just potential massings of how you could cluster these buildings to create a downtown facade. And then moving into the art and food court buildings up here, smaller scale. Remember you were talking about, you liked the event barn, right? But it was in the wrong median.
Yeah.
So if you look at this, we're looking south up here, north, this way. So see how the building scale is a lot smaller. And then we're just kind of showing, these are just, some of these buildings are just suggested form-based code massings. You kind of get the idea of, over time, this will all fill in and kind of create a, a downtown, interesting downtown corridor on both sides, including the median. So
Yeah,
it's
I like the event barn way better.
Sorry?
I like the event barn way better at this
Okay.
median than the other.
Good, I'm glad you do. Again, this is the Chumash buildings that are going, this is the mixed-use building. So this is a good example. There's nothing wrong with this building, but you look what's created with this now, right now, just standard zoning, you got a driveway, you got parking, the building's set down. Well, we were discussing whether it actually is below the street level or not. So it's not really engaging with the street as much as you might like. So a form-based code would start creating buildings that engage with the street. Okay. This is just another study. I kind of went over this earlier, so I was just going to gloss over it.
This was real helpful, though.
Okay, so
I spent a lot of time looking at these pictures.
I mean, we could start looking at every facade and trying to design it, but what's going to happen is the developers are going to come in, they're going to have their own ideas, so we just want to give them parameters so they can get in, get good ideas, get what you want, and then, get a project moving. Okay, whoops. This is Second Street massive. So streetscape, this is kind of, these courtyard buildings are creating those little plaza areas on Second Street. And let's see, this is just the key plan going back through. I'll go through a little faster. And just going through we went through this before, but now here's a rendering of is that median 2? And so food courts, food trucks, the awning systems, street lights. We added the landscaping we asked for, a lot less bare. So this is kind of traditional landscaping, traditional parking curbs. So pedestrians are separated.
So I thought we talked about, did we decide, I thought we were going to go with, I don't think remind me.
Rolled curbs?
Yes, yes.
We have the potential for roll curbs, and we have to work that out. That's the problem. See, if we do we're showing the curb stops here, so forget the problem with renderings, they show everything, right? So if we do that as a roll curb, that's not stopping anybody from going up over the parking.
Yeah, we talked about this.
We did, and I think the direction was roll curbs.
Yeah, so I thought, I don't want to bag anything you've put together here because this is awesome. This is really, really awesome staff work.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to all of you guys. But I think the one thing that we were missing is you were going to do one side diagram of the curb.
Are you talking about the crossing tables or just a curb?
Just the curb. No.
Right. So we have to work that out.
Okay. Cool.
It's a little, it's not premature, but it's really actually, just as you point out, it's really important. Because typically we have a curb that's a wheel stop, or we have a wheel stop. But if you have a wheel stop, how do you have a roll curb? So we got to work that out.
Yeah, but part of it, I thought the reason was in case we want to rope off some of the parking spaces for a larger event.
Yeah.
We don't want to have those. The roll curb makes everything a lot more accessible.
And I think it's a great idea. I think traffic has to weigh in on it.
Oh, well, that's Rose and Mark's problem.
I know.
Okay.
So they're discussing it. We did a little bit looking at everything as we're going along. Okay. Pavilion, event barn. Any questions on this slide?
No.
So this is a section. This is median 3. This is looking at the amphitheater. We don't have an exact design for the covering of the amphitheater, so right now we're just showing a potential structure that would get developed as time went on. The exact size and detail of this is probably going to be fleshed out further down the road. But it is kind of showing the cross-section. So one thing I think is important is to look at the widened sidewalks. We've got 12 foot now. The diagonal parking, drive aisles narrowed. Got an 84-foot median at this point. Again, 14-foot drive aisle, 20-foot diagonal parking, 12-foot sidewalk. Completely different from what you have now. It may look similar in a lot of ways, but it's not. It works completely different.
And 14 feet is enough for bikes and cars to share the road?
Yes. Yeah, we've been vetting that.
And thank you for providing dimensions. I know there's something that we wanted, and I appreciate that because that really gave you a better perspective.
Yeah,
so
that was missing last time. So this is just a 3-dimensional of the amphitheater. Again, I think it needs to go through another level of development. And this is a bunch of ideas. So these are, we were looking at this, like, we could design an amphitheater that looks like that or some of these buildings, but that may not be put off. We may do that in the next step where that becomes a really singular design that's unique, and in year 3 when it gets done, or year 2 when it gets done.
Copper cupolas?
So it might have all copper cupolas.
No.
But the idea is to create,
Be too much on that.
Not on that, no. That thing better not have a Google. That thing looks good. All right, sorry.
do we cover the seats or not cover the seats? Do we create a stage or not create a stage? I think we're kind of still discussing those things, so anyway.
But it should be, Illusion, actually, you might want to cover, because during summer, if you have any type of summer event, it's going to be hot. And then late in the afternoon, we always get the 4 o'clock wind. You can set your time, so you've got to have some protection. So if you don't plan for it, I think that's something that has to be addressed.
I agree with that. Just having been in events there, you just sort of seek out the shade.
Well, yeah, and just, you can go anywhere in the valley in July, and it's an outside event, everybody's fighting over shade. So you want to have something there. So
So we've got 2 key renderings. We're pretty close to the end. So we've got perspective of the pavilion and commons area, and then also median 4, the art and food court. And we'll just touch median 5 just a little bit, because we're actually widening the sidewalk down here significantly. So we're creating a lot of fairly, it's simple, but it's significant outdoor space by closing off these drive aisles. So this, again, just the 3D diagram of the amphitheater down here. This was the Commons building, and this is our pavilion with the cupola and the restaurant building.
Is
This is
Foster
right here.
tracking the number?
So, this does look a little, maybe it is a little generic, I don't know, but
Oh, no. Like, so, oh, sorry. No, never mind. Moving on.
it looks exactly like Buellton to me.
Sure is.
We can work on that tomorrow. Again, this is Commons building here. But the changes are here that we've created all the trees are in plan areas. We've created the roll curb or curb, so we've raised the center. So we've got the separation of pedestrian and vehicular. We got the Sharrow lane. We're showing, landscaping on both sides. That's pretty much that. I think it's quite attractive. And this is a view looking towards what we're calling the courtyard building form. So it may or may not look like this, but the idea is to create, again, more public outdoor space for maybe what could eventually be a civic building. Okay, now we're at the median 4. This is Art and Food Village, which is new. We haven't presented this other than tonight. And this is a 3D rendering looking down. We've also got some views inside. So the idea here's some of our crosswalks. There's a significant amount of crosswalks I didn't really talk about, but we've got crosswalks that Rose and the traffic and engineering have been looking at. So we've got crossings, mid-block crossings on each end, and then also sidewalks within the medians. In this case, we've created a courtyard, so you have potential. What's cool about this, you have potential for maybe external, like gallery space or window display, but you also have internal. And these buildings are fairly small. They're normal, like 10-foot eaves, so almost a residential scale. This is some of the interiors. This is within the courtyard, another view of the courtyard. This is kind of looking at a whole linear length. So we're kind of visioning you to have an event. You start at one end and you walk all the way to the other. It might be art, it might be food. You might have some semi-permanent shops in here. I think it'd be pretty cool. And this is a section through median 5. So at this point, the median is 61 feet wide. We got the 14-foot drive aisle, 20-foot diagonal, 12-foot sidewalk. And the difference over here is we have the 14-foot drive aisle, 20-foot. So we moved the parking out. There's parking there now. We moved it out. And now we have 35 feet of, I don't know if I could call it a sidewalk anymore. So
Is that courtyard? Is that a courtyard?
it's a
up?
plaza.
That's the plaza.
Plaza area. I mean, it's just going to be in front of the existing restaurants over there.
And if you recall, that's where that strange median is, that you can either go to the right or the left, and there's been a lot of complaints that people, if they don't go right, they miss it and don't patronize the businesses. This way gets rid of that and gives them a larger area so restaurants can have areas and different things to do.
I think that is the last slide. The trailer, do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Or Mark, do you want it? No. No, okay. So we talked about design incentives, and And I guess, I'm kind of speaking privately as an architect and representing developers, is I think first of all, you're doing a design in advance of development that I think is an incentive to give people a plan that they can follow. The lack of a plan is one of the primary things that discourages developers. But once you get past that, if you look at some of the things that we are talking about providing, and that could be trade-offs. It could be trade-offs for a lot of different development incentives. So we got, you're building restrooms, you're potentially building off-site public parking lots, creating new parking districts, you're creating a significant number of public improvements throughout the entire Avenue of Flags, trail fees, off-site water, wastewater, installation of public art, payment of library fees. These are all trade-offs, and the incentives could be, and the question is, and I think Irma's going to go over this next, what do you build first? Because we've talked about phasing. What gets it started? So if you don't build restrooms, then does that become could you give a third story to a developer and then have them build the restrooms? And I think that's where we open the discussion. So that's an unknown, right? We don't really know yet. So those are the options. You can reduce on-site parking requirements. You can increase density so you can allow more houses on upper floors. You can allow additional land uses. You can reduce application fees and traffic fees. So there's a lot of trade-offs that are going to be kind of here to discuss.
So I would ask on the ones where we're reducing fees, what would be the effect to the budget on that? I just hate to think that we're not getting money back, and I guess it's a question for Mark.
And that could be offset if they decided to construct additional public improvements that the city may have to have done.
So that would be in that case.
Right. So there's a variety of permutations that we can put forward, so we don't lose out the money in the budget or things like that.
Okay, so the money I would have gone to replace the sewer, you're going to build a sewer, so I don't get the fees.
That is correct.
Gotcha.
So, and Cosmont companies, they're the ones who are experts in this particular thing, and when we get to the specific plan, we will, go into detail on those types of things. But that comment's well taken, and we're trying to make it quid pro quo as far as incentives versus what we get. So.
Okay.
I think it's really one of the most exciting parts of this whole process. Irma, I think it's.
Could we talk about this next? I don't understand the last slide in the packet. Is this supposed to be an example?
There's one more slide on the economic development, the types of incentives for different types of development. I think they're just an example of how they could be applied.
Right, so an incentive would be they want to increase their operating revenues through rental income. So commercial development, they could reduce the on-site parking, reduce rear yard setbacks, or allow additional land uses to help facilitate that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I have just one more slide I snuck in here that wasn't in your packet, but it really is summarizing some of the information that was in your packet. It's dealing with phasing, and the staff report did talk about phasing. I just thought it was kind of nice to take a look and just go through our concept, and this is very tentative right now. The first phase we need to look at is the traffic calming and the safety measures, and look at opportunities for doing some fundraising to build in those safety measures and the improvements that we need to slow down the traffic, to create those safe zones so people will feel safe coming down here, to start forming the infrastructure. And perhaps look at grants and funding opportunities, opportunities to get labor to help us with doing some of the site work for medians 3 and 4. That leads me to phase 2, where we feel that focusing on medians 3 and 4, especially the south side of median 3, close to the intersection of Avenue Flags and 2nd Avenue there, that's really the focal point of activity currently along the avenue. So we would start trying to activate those medians. We would look at the type of investment that's needed to build the commons and the pavilion and the restrooms. We would start doing some programming for the median 4, for the art median, trying to figure out how best to use that median, doing some fundraising, looking at how best to construct the food village, the art village, and start to put in some of the infrastructure such as the parking. Look at a marketing program. Again, our economic development advisors had suggested that marketing plan, the outreach plan, how we pitch this, how we start programming everything is really key to making the activities happen in our downtown area, and start thinking about how to start creating interest. Then moving on to phase 3, we would be, let me see. So I was talking right here about this area. And then moving on to phase 3, we would look at median 1, which is essentially parking and open space here, installing some more parking, parallel parking here for trucks and RVs, diagonal parking. Then we could start installing the event median, the event barn, the paseos, and the event areas. Perhaps do some fundraising for the amphitheater, and looking at these on a more detailed scale. But these would flow in this subsequent phase. And also median 5 that Greg had mentioned, that we would be redesigning the sidewalk here and moving the parking out. We feel that we need to be creating additional parking first along here before we start moving the parking along this median in sensitivity to the existing businesses there. So that's why this median would be addressed after we have some of that other infrastructure in place. Future phases, or potential concurrent items, depending if the market comes up or the public-private partnerships come up, that we end up doing some of these other improvements earlier, maybe through the DOR incentives. But future phases, definitely the Highway 101 Avenue southbound off-ramp configuration. We need to start discussions with Caltrans to see how that would look. We don't want to hold up the design of the rest of the avenue for that, but that's a long lead process. So we would look at that and look at future what that could look like. Perhaps Highway 246 upgrades. There are potential development areas that would come in along here. There's redevelopment area, this entire corner, so there may be some development that comes in here that would lend itself to doing some upgrades along Highway 246. We would look at secondary circulation opportunities here along the backside, parking. We would look at areas in the proximity of this intersection here for securing a building suitable for a civic and community center. So these are just things that we would keep in our mind to be looking forward to or incorporating in as some of the DOR incentives program.
And as part of the phasing, Cosmont and staff would be looking at potential costs for these different phases, so those would be an integral part of the specific plan as well. So it's not that we're throwing all this pie in the sky. We're going to try to put figures on it so everybody knows what the economic impacts would be.
Okay. Do y'all have any questions for staff before we let the crowd speak? No, nothing? I'll get fired. But first off, I want to give my hats off to staff. Considering where we did the first workshop and where we are today, unbelievably good work. So all of you, I hate to give the contractor good credit because I'm a contractor myself, but awesome work. Very, very good work. I think for where we are, after been through a few of these workshops with Mark, and he's seen me in the past, I think this is really good. One of the better ones I've ever seen go to city council, in my opinion. Take that for what you will. Okay, I only have one slip for Peggy. Is she really the only speaker out of everybody?
Oh, now that
they're coming out of the woodwork.
Here they come.
All right, Peggy, you get to go first. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Reif and Commissioners. Peggy Brierton, Buellton resident. I'm going to do my comments first, and then respond to some of the questions and things that were discussed during the presentation. So, first of all, the roundabout, as far as putting it in at some other time, or I say move on it now. Start the discussions with Caltrans now. Don't postpone, regardless of the specific plan. That needs to be fixed, and it's going to take a lot of time. So I would ask that you suggest council to decide to move on that intersection or off ramp, if you will, sooner rather than later. Just get the ball rolling on that. Okay, now, according to what I saw, and I haven't heard in the discussion, the roadway between median 2 and 3, is that being eliminated? It has bollards there. Is that going to have traffic coming through that area between median 2 and 3?
At this point, we're showing it as open space. Sure. These are some of the areas that we still need to refine in terms of how we're going to be using it. We could be using it in conjunction with the event median. I know we talked previously about putting up bollards and having the ability for emergency vehicles to go through, and maybe programming that for some sort of use.
So the roadway's been eliminated for day-to-day use?
At this point,
Between 2 and 3?
between 2 and 3.
Yes, between median 2 and 3.
Right here.
Yeah.
So the one that it lines up with the alleyway of the Chumash Apartments, so that when they come out, they're going to have to go up. They can't cross the street to go down south. They'll have to be forced to go to to 2nd Street if they want to go then down south, or they'll have to go up and around through Damascus, to Damascus, flip a U, and then go back down. I mean, you lose critical circulation by closing that on a regular basis. I mean, in my opinion, we talked about that when the apartments were being looked at, and one reason that the alleyway is lined up with that was so that it has access.
To go this way? So what, I guess, help me, Peggy, that's not okay if they go to the roundabout and turn around and go the other way?
Well, no, for those people that are leaving and they want to exit and they want to turn south.
South on Avenue of Flags.
South onto Avenue of Flags. They're going to have to turn right, then go to Damascus, and then turn back.
Why can't they just go to the end and circle around the roundabout?
What do you mean, to a roundabout?
On the map.
Well, they would go up to here.
They would go there and then circle around, yes. Or they would go to 2nd Street.
Is that on a thoroughfare right there where the parking begins?
There's no parking.
At median 1.
Oh, you're talking about going all the way to the end.
At median 1.
Right. They would go through here.
But the majority of people most likely are going to go out to 2nd Street because that's where the apartments are closest to, and that's the main entrance to the facility, to the apartments.
Now, we have a business at the end at Zaca Business Park. Gets quite busy at times, and trust me, when you have 62 apartments going in there, they will use other access, and they'll use quite a bit of it at times. Not all the time, but at times it will be. I'm just suggesting that losing that, I can absolutely see putting the bollards up and using it for, I mean, even the farmer's market could easily be put into one of these sections at the time being now. For special events, that's great. I'm just saying to close it permanently, I think that's a mistake.
Okay. Well, we can mark that for, I mean, certainly that can be marked. It's not closed, right? So we can mark it for further investigation.
Yeah, it's not.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, they're suggesting it to be closed, but.
All right.
Okay. Now, have the stop signs at 2nd Street been removed? The ones between median 3 and 4? It's not showing stop signs as you're like turning. I know you didn't show the crosswalks, stop signs, or any of that.
We're not
You're not
showing
doing
that type of.
Okay. So the colored pavement that's in that Second Street intersection. I mean, that's kind of confusing to me. I mean, I would almost imagine you would put the colored pavement just at the end of the block if you're going to be putting your stop signs in and traffic, you know, arrows and whatnot. I just don't see that being on decorative. It's just confusing to me to have that archway of colored brickway. You have the whole thing. In the picture, it shows these blue lines, and I'm not quite sure what the blue lines are in your.
And again, a lot of this is just graphical, we're not down to the details, so these comments are well taken to address when we move forward, working on the plan.
Okay, so my point is that's still going to have a stop sign there. And my concern is that you need to have left turn and right turn lanes on a single roadway going down the Avenue of Flags. I think it's essential that you have turn lanes. You have a problem now when you have traffic going down and they want to turn onto 2nd Street and you have somebody wanting to turn towards the schools and you have 3 or 4 cars there and they're waiting for the one turning left and then the one turning right, and you have a backup. It's happening now. You have to have turn lanes. And so I know you're not evidently in the traffic part of it, but you mentioned with circulation, you're having a single lane. It must include left turn lanes and an area for right turn.
So is there going to be I assume there's going to be some kind of traffic study done when all this starts blowing up?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay,
There will
so I assume some of that will be taken into
Well, that
account.
impacts the parking spaces. So some of the parking spaces, diagonal parking places, would have to possibly be removed if you're adding turn lanes. So I'm just saying, you know, it all kind of, you're doing your parking numbers and then, yeah.
Okay.
And we'll look at that, but adding more lanes is kind of defeating the purpose of having a downtown where you're trying to slow traffic, and that's the point of it. But that's what the traffic study will look at and point out.
I mean, I think you can't not think about circulation and gridlock.
No,
And so I think that that is something
That's
that
a good point.
absolutely needs to
I think
looked
it'll be
at.
brought in the traffic study. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it looks like the sidewalks have been widened then, but not the medians at all? The sidewalks are coming in? Is that correct? Were the sidewalks on the avenue coming in? Is that what I heard in your presentation? So that they're wider?
The sidewalk along median
On all of them?
5 will be wider.
Yes,
Those
all the sidewalks will be 12
wider.
feet. Yes.
So all of them are being wider? All of
Yes.
them are wider?
Yes.
Yes, that's okay, that's right. So the median themselves are not, are being wider. The sidewalks are coming in, so that's how we're getting the narrower streets. Okay. Now let me go back I'm sorry, to the circulation portion, if I can. Let's see. The speed tables, where were those located? I just was curious. I didn't see them, and I know you talked about them.
Well, those would
The
be
raised.
at where the crosswalks are located.
You have to.
And I wasn't sure exactly where the crosswalks were.
Well, the crosswalks are generally in these areas.
Okay.
Right here. And right here.
Okay.
And we may have more side crosswalks as well.
Okay.
Median. But
Okay.
at those crosswalks is where the speed tables, the tabled crosswalks will
Right.
be going.
Okay, so now what are the lines in between medium 1 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4, 2nd Street? Is that a crosswalk in the middle of the intersection? It's hard to tell. It looks like it's a
No,
crosswalk.
that's a change of pavement, change of
Oh, a
like
change of
stone,
pavement.
a change of stone.
Okay, okay.
That is a tabled sidewalk.
That,
Yeah,
That's a
actually,
tabled
those
sidewalk.
are tabled crosswalks.
they're
Okay.
table, the whole thing is table.
I would recommend those tabled sidewalks then be put at the end of that intersection instead of in the middle. Because when you have people turning, they're getting ready to stop, but yet somebody might be walking in between a car. If it's just very awkward. I think those need to be moved up.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I know we're too soon, but bus stops have not been mentioned. So how many and where would those be? Okay, let me,
She's asking about
can
the
I,
whole thing.
you're so great because the timer's not going.
No,
Thank you.
that was
No,
the
I'm okay
conscious
with it. We
decision
didn't
for this
let you
workshop
speak.
not to do
We didn't let you speak during the thing, so it's only fair. Can we go back to the tables? I want to make sure I understand. Only the crosswalk are tabled, or the whole thing is tabled?
Just the crosswalk.
Just the crosswalk is tabled. Okay.
Right, yeah, I understand what those are. So, now, let's see. Like, can I just start, okay, I love what you did with Median One. I think it's very effective. It's using some of that space that is just being there and is totally underutilized. So I think good job there. And then when we have the roundabout, hopefully through Caltrans, it can be adapted and altered. So that's good. Now, Medium 2, it seems like a silly thing, but the bar where you have the covered area for events, I don't see it by DeMassa intersection there. I would like to see that event covered area just to the other side on the median, on the south median too. Yeah, just switching them.
Okay, so
yeah, so you
where?
would have the barn, you have the covered where it
It's right
says
here.
right. To the left of that, you have the covered areas for
Oh, right,
events.
the trellis
sales and stuff.
shape.
Flipping.
Yeah, just flip it because
got
it
that.
seems
Okay.
that it seems like all of the stuff, the center of town's at the other action. And I question the kiosk that's at that intersection. If these kiosks, if I understand correctly, maybe food or whatever that you're recommending as a possible food, I guess, that's just sitting there. This is an important place where you can say, you're coming into town. I mean, it could either be an art installation laid there or like good landscaping or something, but I don't see this kiosk sitting there. It's just kind of this small little thing that it's got to be really, really a neat statement right there. And then, of course, remember, you have a variation of elevation from the east side to the west side. I mean, there's a big slope, and in the images that's shown, it still didn't do that. You're talking about the curved, roadway where, you wanted, instead of the block for the cars to drive up on. All of that's going to really change when you get the elevations involved. So that's something I'm sure they're working on. So that would be my 2 cents there. And the pole barn, I think pole barn's great. It's a covered area and it's very useful. And so then we move on down to the third median. And if we're going to have an amphitheater and plan on having an amphitheater, you better do a band shell. I mean, you can't just plan an amphitheater and not do some acoustic. You're going to have sound going everywhere. You want to direct it to the amphitheater. You have to do something. It's got to be more than trees. It's got to be some kind of structure. And I'm not talking necessarily maybe stage, but I'm just saying some kind of band shell. And
We discussed that at the last meeting. I think we all voted against that. It looked really ugly.
a band shell.
That was, yes.
It doesn't matter, whatever you want to have it look like.
No,
I'm just
like
saying
all of the options looked like junk. They were pretty bad.
you need something. You can't just have...
Why?
Because you're not going to have an amphitheater with performances and having the sound going everywhere when somebody's having something on stage. And sound will travel if you don't have it directed. Trust me.
Well, I believe you.
Yeah, and so there must be some solution to it. Because it makes no sense to have an amphitheater, put the money in for the amphitheater, and then have no acoustic force behind it to send the performances out to the people in the audience.
Well, I think right now we're interested in phase one, so maybe that can come in additional phases.
Just saying, you need to include the two. You do the amphitheater,
sure,
you need some kind of
I get
band
it. I mean,
shell.
I'm not sure Pavarotti's coming on his first tour out here initially, but
If you have somebody doing a poetry reading, a guitar playing, I don't know,
well,
whatever.
I get it. I think
Okay.
more that he is a performance area than it is an acoustically elite facility.
And you may, and I'm not even saying even if it's some kind of special person coming, I mean, it's going to have a myriad of different type of
I understand.
performances.
That's fair.
And so we have to plan for that, that's
Okay.
all. So, Now, I'm glad you did the bollards there to protect everybody on that median, but again, this is our town square, and I particularly don't know, I don't know where you've been, where you really like cars coming alongside you with the bollards there, and this is your city plaza, and you have people meandering around and traveling and walking, and the traffic lanes are right alongside you. Yes, you have some trees that are planted there, and yes, you have some bollards to protect you, but I think it would be wiser to put the diagonal parking alongside the median instead of the buildings. It protects the people that are in the plaza that come to it. And you talk about the common building. Everybody that uses this plaza, the common building in all this area, they're going to be then parking on the outside, walking across the street to whatever it's going to be. These businesses will have, especially on the east side, will have some parking on the back side of them.
So you want the parking on the median?
You know
Is that what
how,
you're suggesting?
yeah, you know how on Copenhagen, that one block behind in Copenhagen where they switch, diagonal, parallel. So what it does also is it gives options of people that, might have, whatever, trouble parking or want to just pull in or whatever. But it also gives you a visual when you're looking down the street. You're not just seeing cars all butted up in to the side. You see some diagonal, some parallel. And I'm suggesting that first of all, you bring the diagonal and or parallel, some combination, alongside the medians. It will make it more attractive, more useful for the people in the plaza. I mean, this is our central public area that we're supposed to use, but it also does something else. If you were to use an event there, you can use that parking space and block it off for some more food carts. You have different options if you have the parking alongside
You're
your
just
central
talking one
plaza.
median, Peggy.
Just the one median, yes, exactly.
I disagree with you, because that's the mercantile center right there. It's pretty much the heart of everything. That's the heart of the whole place. I want people on the sidewalks. I don't want them parking in the median.
But the people are in the sidewalk in the town plaza. That's what I'm saying. So cars protect people. What?
They'd be parked in the median.
No.
What do you mean, no?
No, I wouldn't cut into the median.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying move the parking from the sidewalk to the median.
Yeah, from across the way
Right.
to the median,
But I want them parking on the street. I want them walking on the sidewalk.
They will be.
No,
But
they
you
won't
have to
be.
have a
They'll be
job.
if I own a business, I want them parking in front of my business. I don't want them parking across the street in the center of our town.
See, this is the combination of things. We want it all. So you have to balance it out. They're going to have parking behind those buildings on the east side. The people at those businesses you'll have them walking across the street from the town plaza to the businesses. Either which way, you're going to have people crossing the street. And what I'm saying is it gives you a different option. When you have an event on the avenue, in the town square,
Why can't
town
we
plaza,
block them off where they are now?
You wouldn't,
I don't understand what you're saying.
You couldn't block them off because they're on the other side of the street.
Why?
The line,
Put a street up so you can't park here. What do you mean?
no,
This is what we discussed this all last time. I'm with you.
no. Okay, I'm just not describing it well.
No, I understand what you're saying. You're saying if the parking is on the median, not on the sidewalk, you flip it, then you'll be able to block it off.
Right now, the diagonal parking is along the outside buildings.
Yes, ma'am.
If you block that off, what good does that do to the central plaza? They're blocked off across the street. If you switch it and the diagonal is butted up onto the median,
Yeah.
up to the median instead of the businesses, just in that median, then you can block them off and use them for other things. Am I not making sense?
But I don't see how the roadway goes in.
Same. We're just switching where the parking is on the east side to the west side.
On that one only.
Sure, because the other
So
ones
they'll
all
go
have
down
diagonals.
So then they're going to curve off. Yeah, I disagree.
So
do you mean
at
they
some
curve?
point, you'll start where there's parking on this side,
Yes.
on the east side of the median,
Sure.
or the east side, and then you're going to say, okay, this next median, I'm going to make it on this side.
Sure.
And so you're going to go like this, then I'm going to have to go over like this to avoid running
I'm
into that
just
car.
saying, obviously, there's design things that they could do. They're experts. They could
know
do
how
them.
that one works, but-
But I'm just saying, it does a number of things. It protects the people. Cars parked up protect people. Gives them a sense of more intimacy. It's our town square. Gives us more options. options for when we have events there. It doesn't look so cars like boom, 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 all the way down when you're looking down the avenue. That's very aesthetically very unpleasing.
So
So
you're proposing that they put a curve in there?
No.
No, she wants to put the parking spots on the median instead of on.
Nosing up
the
to the
street side.
median instead.
Oh, yeah, but I'm
Against
We
the
got it.
median. Trust me,
We
we
got it.
understand.
We got
Point
it.
taken.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to go
And I
on.
think
Moving on, thank you.
Moving on.
We got a lot of speakers, Peggy.
We sure do. Okay,
We're 30
and
minutes.
more than patient with
Okay.
me. Okay, and, okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay. Let's not yet. I want to talk about the pillars and the design. And I agree with you, Foster, in some ways that it seems a little generic, but I think that you can't mix too many things up. Otherwise, you end up with hodgepodge. You want variations, and I think the ones that were mentioned were good for the design. I would recommend that the pillars have a variation in styles. Instead of these big, huge block things, have them, some of the wooded open ones, change it up, mix it up a little bit. Some of them, especially on the vending machine boxes, vending buildings, they're quite stocky for that, and I think it looks out of proportion. So I would suggest that. Also, solar roofing and all of that, we talked about that before, and I think in the tape, I couldn't go to the other workshop, I heard somebody mention solar roofing, and I agree, whoever said that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, because it's a good idea, and I'd like that not to go away, any kind of solar thing that could be done. And let's see. Okay, and so now finally the fourth median. I think it's fine. I think you better ask some artisans. If you're going to make it an artisan group, you need to ask art groups what they want. And I would think that single story is a little short for that, even though you have Red Rose Court across the way and the land's a
Are you
little.
saying
they
Peggy
need to be a little
Brierton
taller.
wants 2-story in the middle of the
Not
median?
necessarily.
Ooh.
You could go
Well,
taller
groundbreaking, Peggy.
with the vaulted. I want 45. I want 45-foot buildings, but not that building. They need to be taller.
Okay.
If you have to think about form-based code, height to width ratio, and you're going to go taller. That's why 45 works on the avenue.
I like it.
So, a little taller, and I would recommend asking artisan groups what they would like in it. And are these going to be used periodically, all the time, or however, that wasn't discussed. But I think that's enough because I've got plenty of other things. I want only one other thing about architecture. Please do not forget what the community said. They did not want, it won no favors at all for the 50s diner or the Art Deco. They did not want it. So, you got that. You asked the people. The people told you what they wanted. They also did not like Mission Revival. That got very low scores. But, we should at least give what the people asked for. And the traditional downtown without the Art Deco. And
Didn't that change in the most recent meeting that you led?
No.
You're talking about the one forever
I'm talking
ago.
about the community.
Yeah,
when it
I
all got
understand.
together.
And then he had another design style one in his last meeting, and I don't think you're
No.
shaking your head. Yes, Peggy, I was there. Don't
I
tell me
know.
no.
I was at all the ones also that the Planning Commission had. It was part of the Planning Commission packets from when we studied before.
I'm tracking. The original one, I got it. No arguments. That, like the one we did 5 years ago or however
Yes.
long ago. I got it. I'm with you 100%.
Okay.
Then in the recent meeting we had, like a year ago, so fast forward 4 years, which is a whole Olympics, right?
Right.
I don't think Art Deco got shot down anything like it did. I think it was actually a little more accepted. And correct me if I'm wrong from the staff.
But that was,
So
it
I'm not
was.
trying to argue with you. I'm just you can't pull one snapshot and then present it without presenting the current snapshot.
When you have such a turnout for community visioning, and you have so many people taking the little button test, and that was a lot of people. And when you look at the workshop that happened, there were not that many people with the workshop. You just have to look at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fair. Thanks, Peggy. I appreciate your help. I will say to Peggy's comments, the one thing probably should get encompassed is I do think the roundabout should probably, that is a good oversight. I think that maybe you should move up from it's not even in your phases. It's in a future phase.
Okay, it may have been misdescribed. We put that in as a future phase to be implemented because we can't really start showing it now. We don't know how it's going to turn out with Caltrans. It was not my intent to say that we would not start the discussions with Caltrans. We would, but Caltrans discussions can take years.
Well, so can we
before-
put that in phase 1? Begin Caltrans discussions?
We can do that. Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Even though that might not go anywhere.
Let's
We
see.
can always begin discussions.
You can.
Yeah,
Yep.
hallelujah.
Yep.
Start the headache now.
Fair enough. Okay, and I think the rest of the stuff's good points. A lot of nuts and bolts, though, Peggy. That we're gonna. No, I get it. We're just unfortunately, I'm the king of nuts and bolts. We're just not ready for nuts and bolts. But good input. Good input. Okay. Sorry. Okay, Peggy's done. All right, I'm gonna do them in the order. Oh well. Who is next? No, gee. Okay, Ron, you're up.
Ron Anderson, 374 Kendale. I'm here to just compliment everybody on this team that's worked on this. And I'm very impressed with the medians, incredibly. And I think you've done it right. You guys are really getting to it. The question I had was the 246 area that we don't have anything planned over there yet, right?
We're not showing any graphic depiction,
Right.
but we're programming in potential uses when we're looking at parking needs and everything. But we're focusing on this downtown area, which is going to be the catalyst, we feel.
Yeah, okay. That needs some help over there, too.
But the specific plan will address
Okay.
the strips along 246 as well.
All right, anyway, great job, thank you.
You go ahead. Are you gonna blame me? Don't you always? Okay, I'm sorry. Don't be offended if you're not calling an order. Judith. Now got dropped on my lap, so.
No problem.
Okay.
Judith Dale, 381 Thumbelina. I'm going to ramble a little bit. I was kind of taking notes. If I understand this, the goal of the specific plan is to allow us to do these trade-offs. Otherwise, why do we need it? Because we certainly don't need it for the medians, because we own that. We don't need a specific plan for that. But what we're trying to do is give economic incentives to future development. Is that correct?
I think.
Well, that's one aspect of the specific plan. It's also to give developments certainty as far as land uses, form-based codes, and what they can put in there. And just because we own the medians, we can partner with developers to develop the medians if we have a plan. So it's not just the economic incentives, it's land use incentives, form-based code incentives. So developers, and this is as Cosmot brings up, if you have this plan and they have certainty of what is out there, what you can do, they're more likely to come in and invest in the city.
Guarantee of a future vision,
Okay.
if you will.
So does this specific plan change the zoning that's in place now? I mean, are we saying to some
No.
landowners, you can't do certain things on your land?
No.
Yes.
It does? Oh.
Well, if you look at the village-specific plan that we did, it has a separate list of uses that are allowed in the village-specific plan that are different than the municipal code. That's what a specific plan does. It's a type of zoning ordinance for a particular area. So we try to focus the uses, and the uses in here are draft. If the community or the commission or the council want different uses added, they can be added.
So what area is what specifically be being rezoned in the draft picture up on the board?
May
What
go to the
zoning would
first. It's a specific plan over the area that
No,
we've identified.
I understand. So knowing what the current zoning is, what would be changed given the current presentation?
The CR that this current area zoned would become a specific plan area, and it would have a list of uses as we've identified in the
I
plan.
think it gives them more options, not less options. I don't think it's a. I think what she's trying to get at, Mark, is if you're a landowner and you're
I
zoned.
understand.
Yeah, so.
But does the community want a auto repair facility on the avenue in the downtown?
Probably not.
Land use regulations and laws give you the opportunity to say what uses can go in a particular area. So if you don't want those types of uses, you can take those out. You can put other ones in, like if you want to add industrial, like light industrial or live work, you can add that that's currently not in there. So you
Okay,
can
that's what you're saying.
you put and take different types of uses.
So we
within the
are
area.
telling landowners that their rights are changing with this specific plan. Is that correct?
Any zoning change changes the opportunities on the property, and
I
that's
think-
the purpose of the specific
I think that's a
plan.
way you could state it. I'm not sure that that is really the intent nor the recommendation of the commission.
I would hope not, because, you know, there's one landowner here,
No, I
you know,
understand.
and I haven't seen that many landowners at these. By the way, I am for this, but
I
I
understand.
think this is a serious issue that needs to be dealt with, is that we are limiting the opportunities of some landowners to do what presently they could do.
No, I disagree with that statement. I don't think we're limiting, well, when you say limiting, we're limiting to the specific uses that are listed in there, which I think are extraordinarily broad, given what the city wants to do with the Avenue of the Flags.
Okay, all I'm saying is, I think you better carefully work with the landowners and be sure that they're clear and that, you know,
Is Mr. Robinson one of them? Is he going to speak?
I don't know.
He gave me a slip. Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Well,
okay.
so we'll hear what the says. Okay.
So, with that, by the way, I'm totally for the roundabout coming off 101. I mean, that's just
Okay.
a speed trap, and I agree, let's do it as quickly as possible. Have we dealt with the flood, FEMA and the flood areas on the avenue? Because some of that is in a floodplain, correct?
Yes, and that will be done when we already have that information, and current development has to comply with it, and the specific plan will include that when we prepare the specific plan.
Okay, so some of the medians are going to be high. They're
Yeah.
going to have to be built up.
This is much like the traffic conversation that Peggy brought up, nuts and bolts.
Right,
That's gonna be incorporated. Right
You know-
now, we're focusing on core design.
Yeah, and something you might want to think about when the things have to go up, you might want to think about putting parking underneath some of this, because parking can be in a floodplain. You know, and that kind of maybe starts looking at, you know, the traffic flow and parking and parking near some of these areas. So, you know, parking underneath and some of the things up above possibly could be, you know, a way to deal with FEMA and the floodplain and all that sort of thing. I'm totally for the 45 feet. You know, why not? I mean,
Shoot it
come
too.
on.
Well, look at this.
Why
Look
not?
at that, 1,000.
Why not? You know, if there's anywhere it should be tall.
Do you want to weigh in on the Solvang Rotunda or no?
I am going to weigh in on the Solvang Rotunda.
Okay, good.
Why, you know, when I looked at the pictures of where it's at, you have this rotunda thing, but you don't have anything around it. I mean, what are you going to put in that? What's going to go on in that thing?
There's lots of stuff around it. They got the whole. They got the whole. What is that?
Can we go back to where you show it in the street? Because it's right on the street, right?
Yeah.
That's what I see right here.
Yeah, they got that circle roundabout thing that they're gonna. We've talked about doing events and everything around there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so people are going to be standing here, and here's the street. I mean, are they going to be standing in the street listening to whatever's going
Or
on?
the other one.
No, there we go.
That one.
There you go.
There's not a whole lot of space for anyone to enjoy.
Sure, there's
What's
all the
going
middle
on?
area. Well, how about this? That median's not that. I mean, what were you suggesting we do?
Well, we're thinking maybe a band in there, or what do we
Forget
think
it's
is
used.
going to go
What-
in there?
What's your suggestion for how
My
we fix it?
suggestion is there needs to be a place where people sit down and listen. I mean, I guess that's the amphitheater.
Yeah, that's the amphitheater.
Right, so why are we having this thing?
You want to get rid of the Solvang Rotunda? No, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is it really functional?
Yeah.
Is it really, what are we going to put in there that wouldn't go in the amphitheater?
I shot down the Commons building and got outvoted 4-1, so I don't understand the function of that either. But I do think a rotunda in the middle of our center downtown
I agree.
makes sense for 100 different reasons, and they can all stand in the middle between the Commons building and the rotunda, and you could rope that part off, right?
Yeah, so you're saying that people are just going to stand and listen. They're not. You're not going to bring a lawn chair and sit and.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
What do they do in the Solvang Rotunda?
Yeah, but there's a park around it.
Well, but you could rope. That's what I'm saying. See all the people in between the big,
Well, these
huge
are the
building
boards,
that I
so-
don't like and the rotunda. You could rope that. You could rope that area
Okay,
off.
so you're saying that the audience would be out in here?
Correct.
Okay.
Or on the other side, right?
The other side of the street.
The other side. No, the other side of the.
It's a street, right?
No, guys. On the other side of
The meeting.
the north and south of the rotunda, right? There's median on there's the intersection which they can close off on the south side.
Okay, so
and
you're
there's
going to
median
close
on
off.
the north
Okay.
side.
Okay, I'm just wondering, do we really need this thing and the amphitheater? And I love the amphitheater.
Oh, I love the rotunda, just not
Okay.
this rotunda.
Okay. It's just, I'm trying to figure out what we would do with it.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
All right.
I don't know. Does any jump in? This is just me. Does anybody not like the rotunda?
I like the
Forget.
I
forget
like
the-
it. I like it. It's just, I'm wondering how functional it's going to be if people can't sit, but you're saying there's plenty of room to sit.
I think that's sort of minutia that right now we're not getting into. Who knows, maybe they'll have concrete benches out there or, put,
Yeah.
so I
They
think
could
that's probably
Tables and
down the
chairs.
road.
Okay, gotcha. All right, Vintage Walk is there. It's not going anywhere.
Yep.
And are we doing anything to try to make it fit in with the architecture that we're talking about?
There's gonna be an art barn right across the street from it.
Yeah, but, I mean, Vintage Walk, what's its style? It's French Provincial? What style is that?
I believe it's Craftsman.
Craftsman,
Craftsman.
okay. All right, good, because I like Craftsman. But I just didn't want Vintage Walk to be a sore thumb looking thing. It will fit
Well,
with the
so
rest.
the barn is agrarian. I mean, I think it's all gonna go fine, Judith. I hear you.
Great. I'm totally for covering the amphitheater. I mean, my parents, when I would bring them to things, Dan, you're absolutely right. You'd look for the shade.
Yep.
So think about covering it. And I'm very much for a stage for the amphitheater so that, they're looking down and there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
stage.
Okay.
That's, if it's covered or not, I don't know. I totally agree with Foster about the vendor buildings and the roll-up thing. That looked kind of tacky. I would hope we come up with something better than a little shack with a roll-up door, or maybe put them in a line, I don't know, but I didn't like that, but that's a teeny detail.
Yeah,
That's
that's right.
getting down to really being picky. I kind of got lost with the roll curb of why we would want that. So a dolly or something full of stuff could,
No, so some of the parking spaces, I would say a majority of the parking spaces abut the median and not the sidewalk under most of the medians. And so we do not like the big concrete block in front of it because it doesn't really provide any fluidity amongst the
so someone might
median.
trip or
No,
the
so
pedestrian.
when we decide to block off those parking spaces for an event across that whole median, it's very fluid. Instead of having those big, huge concrete blocks, it's just a little roll.
I agree, though, that the cars, there needs to be something to stop the cars.
In most cases, there'll be a car parked there. Oh, you mean from the car rolling up and hitting somebody when they're parking?
Yeah, or not stopping at the right.
And I think that's for Mark and
Yeah, that's for you
Yeah,
experts
didn't we?
to.
We talked about that. Didn't I blame that on Rose and Mark?
Yeah, okay. That's their job, right? Redevelopment area number 7. It's the one that was residential. I don't know if we can go back to that. What in the world is residential doing back there?
It's the first hit home. Make your life easier.
Hit home?
Hit home. and then go down to,
Yeah,
there
right.
we go.
This one, this is, I can't even think of
There-
what's there now.
There's already residential there.
There's houses and apartments.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I'm totally for mixed use and that sort of thing on the avenue. It's just, I really don't want to give up space on the avenue for just residential.
Yeah, but you, Judith,
But it's-
wait, Judith, hold on, no, hold on. We're gonna play a little oxymoron now.
Okay.
You gave me a whole speech about not pulling landowners' rights, and it's currently all residential, but you want me to pull their rights?
No. Well,
okay.
I mean, first of all, maybe we need to clear the air on, you know, when this specific plan goes in, you're not telling someone that doesn't fit that they have to leave, right?
Absolutely not.
absolutely
Yeah,
not.
okay,
No.
so I'm not saying take 7 away. I'm saying when 7 redevelops, you know, do we really want just residential there? And it's a question. I'm not making a
That's fair.
huge,
That's fair.
huge
Okay.
issue out of it.
Future use of
Yeah.
RDA 7?
Yeah, it seems like there could be better use than just residential.
Okay.
Unless it's a multifamily or something like that.
And again, in our build-out projections, we made some assumptions so that we could come up with some sort of an estimate of what it will look like. It may not end up being that.
Right. And so that's kind of my point that I opened with. This is fluid, and as opportunities arise, we won't have a closed mind. This might work, this, you know, and so the landowners do have lots of options and opportunities to
No, I'm the only
Develop
one. I'm the
something.
only one close to suggestions. So
Yeah, okay. I think that's it for me. Once again, I want to congratulate people. And a lot of work. There's going to be a lot more work, but hey, this is what city government's all about. Way to go.
thanks, Judith. Okay, you're going last, Judy. Pete's up. Just giving you a warning. It's those hoop earrings. I'm not sure. Those hoop earrings are what's going to keep me awake. All right.
Good evening, planning commissioners. My name is Pete Robertson. Regarding the zoning, there's a substantial number of things that are being taken away from the landowners under this new plan. I've asked for a list, I never get one, but there's many things in there, but you really don't know what's excluded from CR versus the specific plan, particularly for each lot. So a lot of landowners should be here trying to protect their interests, or at least the future value.
So can we talk about that just for a minute?
Sure.
'Cause I think it's important. So did you get the list that would be approved for this area? Forget the part that would be disproved.
I saw on one of the
Will you go to that
general
slide?
community things.
There we go.
Attachment 4 in the
Right.
staff report
It's right there. I
has
thought
that
about
from
it.
the workshop.
Yeah, so essentially it would be this. So I think you could, I mean, so is this, what I'm trying to get at, is this not fairly exhaustive?
If you compare that to CR, you'll see CR is much bigger.
Fair. That's fair.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
saying you're subtracting, you're not adding.
No. Copy. I'm not disagreeing with you. I guess what I'm trying to get at, though, is with the potential of all the community investment going into the project, there will be some potential trade-offs. Some sort of a zero-sum game there. Is that still not? I'm not trying to ignore your concern. I'm trying to have a conversation with you as a landowner, because I'm not as lucky as you. I don't own a bunch of land over there. Is there not some trade-off there that you're willing to eat, or no?
Truthfully, I don't know.
Okay.
This plan actually, particularly the medians, is quite a bit different than the one I saw at Pea Soups.
Right.
There's been a lot of things added.
Right.
One of my concerns is like median 2, food courts and art walks and things like that. Those compete with the private property owners. I mean, a food court, you're going to compete with all the restaurants on private property. And art galleries, people who own art galleries.
Well, I mean, I guess the concept is, I mean, have you walked Carmel or something like that? I mean,
I haven't recently.
well, I mean, I'm sure when you were there 20 years ago, there's still probably 400 art galleries instead of the 600 there are now or whatever. I mean,
And part of these kiosks would be for private business owners to rent. It would not be city
Yeah, it's not
doing
city,
this.
yeah.
Yeah,
we're
but
not
they're
doing-
renting it from the city. They're not
Unless
they're
there's
not renting it from private property owners.
That's yet to be seen as part of the economic development. There could be public-private partnerships associated with that.
Well, again, you're competing with the private property owners, the taxpayers and so on.
No, that's valid.
The amphitheater, seems to me something that you'd use 10, 15 times, 20 times a year.
Oh, you mean the overall concept? There's another one. I lost 4-1 on that one too. I did not like the amphitheater.
I mean, one of the things that was discussed and I thought was kind of agreed to at that PSOUP meeting was to keep the meetings as flexible as possible so that you could have car shows, things that would attract people to the surrounding businesses, not create businesses in the meetings, but have events there that would attract people to the surrounding businesses is the way I understood it.
Well, so help me, like, what do you envision, just if you had a,
I would take
tabula rasa, what does Pete Robertson do with the meetings? Erase all of the...
I would do pavers, turf pavers or something like that. Make it as flexible as possible so you could have different types of shows. You could have a concert. You could have you could have a chair and a table that wouldn't sink into grass, chairs that wouldn't sink into grass or anything like that. So seating that would be portable. It would also double as a parking lot when it's not being used for an event. Something that you could stage numerous different things on.
For all the medians or just one of them?
Well, one or two of them. I'm not sure if the pole barn or what it is. I would put it at one end or the other because this way you're having the thing. So, I mean, if you put it at one end, then the rest of it could be utilized. But again, I think that agrees with what Judith was saying. That, I mean, that's just my suggestion. And I would do away with those kiosks and whatever they are if they're permanent. Again,
even the little center area with the little restaurants in there.
Yes, you don't need restaurants there. I'm saying let the private property, property that's going to generate the property taxes and the sales taxes, go on the private property and use that for public events, public entity. My thing. And we talked about parking on the medians.
Most of the parking is on the medians.
I mean, on the medians, not ancillary to the medians, where the median focus is something different.
You mean actually into the side of the median?
On the median.
On the median?
Yeah, so the median is a parking lot, if you will.
Wow.
That could do double duty as an event center or any number of things.
Yeah.
That was what the plan was proposed at PSOUPs, I believe.
Was to keep the parking on the median, Irma? Yeah.
We were showing median 2 that had the diagonal parking similar to what we're showing right now. It had parking along the edge of the median with the paseo area, the use area for events in the middle, which is what we were showing.
But I've said that before. I think that's just my opinion, or for what it's worth. Again, I don't think you should be setting up businesses or things that compete with the restaurants and everything that are on private property.
Yeah, that's fair. Pete, I'm not trying to ignore your concerns, but like these are little tiny coffee kiosks. I mean, these are little tiny. I mean, if I built a whole piazza with tons of restaurants around all this stuff, I would see where you're coming from. But you can't tell me a coffee kiosk in 3 art galleries are going to impede the commercial
Well, so the coffee,
development.
is it a food court or is it a coffee kiosk?
Well, but either way,
Well, you said 3 art galleries. okay.
Either way, we're talking about 4 of those little things across a whole mile of road.
And what about median 2? What is that?
That's the event
So there's
center.
2. There's a kiosk on each end. That's what he's talking about. And then in median 3, there's like 4 kiosks or whatever.
Okay. And median 2, isn't there a food court and a
On
art
median
walk?
2,
But that's medium.
median 4,
Four.
maybe a
Four.
restaurant or 2, yeah.
Or 2 or 3?
But nothing's, this is all concept, and the
I'm
plan's
just-
not doing so, but the comments are well taken, but nothing in here is set in stone. This is concept, and that's why we're taking public testimony, and we're getting the commission's input.
And
One of the issues too, if I could add to that, because the median is really not a full block, you can't have the type of services you would have for a full restaurant, so these are probably temporary type restaurants. You might have an event where they would set up food for the day, on a Saturday or something like that, and they would work out of the kiosk. So
well, that's fine, if it's a one-time deal, but I mean, why even build it if it's just going to be used when there's an event? Why not let the food truck be the thing that you're...
And again, this input's all valuable, and nothing's set in stone on all of this.
And I agree with the 45-foot new height.
Of course you do. Well, of course you do.
But for a little bit different reason. If you allow 3 stories and you squeeze it into 35 feet, you're not increasing the stories any, so why not do it in 45 feet and make it better?
Make it better.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate your time, sir. All right, Judy, best for last.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Here, we're going to start the clock for you.
Oh my God. I hope it goes reverse. Judy Stauffer, 1610 Cougar Ridge Road, Buellton. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for all of the work, wherever he just went. Boy, there's so much to say. First, though, the first thing I have to say is my heart is like pounding. I am so glad to hear that you're going to start in phase 1 talking to Caltrans about the off-ramp and about the roundabout at that intersection, because that intersection, as those of you who use it know, is problematic as it is, and it'll only get worse as the avenue becomes a viable downtown. So thank you. There are a lot of things that I'm excited about with this plan. But I want to do the caveat is that, as Pete Robertson and others have talked about, one of the reasons why this has never been my favorite design, keeping an abandoned highway looking like an abandoned highway with this median down the center, is exactly what we're talking about. The median isn't wide enough to really do substantial anythings, and so you end up having these little things plopped around. And that being said, I agree.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
We saw this video. What city was that?
Lancaster.
Lancaster.
I was there. I saw it.
Okay, just so we're clear, that median is like half.
I know. And they did a lot of parking on the median the way Pete had suggested, which I think looked horrible. And ours is even wider. And again, it's going to continue looking like an abandoned highway, just having this.
Did you see how awesome the town looked after?
Yeah, but also realize they didn't have the scale of a highway. Their width between the two sides of the street was
how about
not
this?
as wide as ours.
It's like I tell my wife, bring me solutions, not problems.
Well, I am.
Okay, good. Could I cut you off, Judy? Okay.
No, hold on.
Don't
I'm
do
going to
the
tell you
dance.
what I like.
Don't do the
okay?
dance. Don't do
I'm
the
going to tell you what I like. So, I like the idea that if you're going to do food courts or little art kind of things, that you talk to potential restaurateurs, you talk to the artist groups in the valley to see what the needs are. That form needs to follow function. So before you get too wedded in what this is going to look like or whether it's even desirable, make sure that there's really a need for it. I also like the idea that you're widening the sidewalks. I think that, having al fresco dining downtown is wonderful. I get a little concerned by how much pavement is going to be on the medians, but with much of what's coming out technologically with permeable paving and sidewalks and things like that, where water can drain in and, you can recharge and stuff like that, I think there's lots of wonderful, sustainable kinds of things that could be incorporated that could make Buellton, both be more functional, but also be more forward-thinking in terms of what it is you do. So that's exciting to me. I think I read or heard tonight the possibility of moving the visitor center onto a median. And I like that idea.
I think that was discussed as maybe a potential use of the common building.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. Number one, if that's kind of going to be a magnet for people to kind of come to as they come and visit Buellton, I think it makes total sense to do that. I love the idea that you're incorporating more live workspace in the downtown with multi-use kinds of things. 3 stories, brilliant. I'd even go higher because, again, you have a wide space between those two.
I give up trying to guess you two.
Between those 2 sidewalks, that's a big space. And if you're going to try to make the downtown look somewhat intimate and pedestrian-friendly, you've got to give the illusion that.
Okay.
So I like that. That's good.
So we do make a comment that I think everybody so far, everyone is a fan of the higher heights.
Yeah.
I think that's a given. I think that's a pretty solid consensus. Even from the naysayers of height and density of every meeting I've ever been to in my entire life. If you can comment on that, it'd be great too.
Oh yeah, I'm not opposed to. I think you need to go high. I'd even go higher than 3. Did I understand correctly that there was a suggestion of possibly moving the post office and the library onto a median, into one of those buildings?
We were looking at the idea of possibly a post office annex and maybe a virtual library. We're not certain that there's enough room to put a full-fledged library there.
Okay.
And there's pros and cons about moving the post office, which we need to take a look at as to whether it would really function on the median or in a civic center, or whether it, there's a lot of other
so it's
issues
still
to be taken into
being
consideration. But we looked at the possibility of, in the Commons building, possibly a small postal annex, a virtual library perhaps for young people to take advantage of different ways of connecting with learning and with the media nowadays. So.
Well, I hope, and I know it was mentioned about a civic building. I hope that there is still a conversation about the possibility of moving the library and the post office to the downtown, because again, I think there needs to be reasons why people come downtown. And I think that if the city has a physical presence downtown, not just the medians, but a real legitimate reason, then it also signals landowners and potential developers that the city now really is serious. Because as I see with your phasing, basically you're going to put a lot of emphasis into the medians, which is kind of what happened with the urban design plan, where that kind of started with redecorating median. I'm not sure how you're doing it, but now it's 5 and 4. Originally, where a lot of money was put in there with the idea that that was going to signal that something was going to happen, and nothing really has happened much other than the fact that Mr. Moriarty built Vintage Walk. I think there's too many architectural styles. I'd love to see that, it is a more traditional looking downtown and we don't have these kind of one-off buildings, no matter how cute or clever they might be. The pavilion. Again, I think form needs to follow function. I think that, there needs to be really good thought given as to what you're going to do there, and then figure out, how best to make it work. The one thing that I think Solvang has going for it is that, as it was mentioned, there is a park. There's places where you can put out a lawn chair or put out a blanket. As I understand this, you're planning just to have pavers everywhere. And so that doesn't kind of lend itself for, spreading out a picnic blanket and listening to some music or something going on there. So I would just again, I would just kind of think it through. And the other thing, which I think I also heard, which I liked, was the idea that there might be consideration for a parking structure. So that instead of having to have maybe parking, unlike Peggy, I don't like necessarily the parking around the medians itself, that some of the parking might be able to be taken up by parking structures. So that's basically it. Thank you.
That's it. All right. Thanks, Judy. I think we discussed a lot. I don't know. I think the conversation about the rotunda utilization may be helpful. I mean, I don't know. Irma, I mean, maybe, just, if we close that stuff off, right, and we still want to use the rotunda, how does traffic get through and around, do you see what I'm saying? It is kind of in the middle of the street. And I don't know, I just...
That was being shut though.
Yeah, I think the comments were to the point. I think we do need to take a look at what we will be utilizing the pavilion for, and taking another look at how to lay that out.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
so I can see, that median's pretty big, right? And so, and this isn't really drawn to scale, right?
it's pretty much.
It's drawn to scale. Okay, let me shooting down my stuff. I mean, it's possible where you could be pointing it toward the north, right? And then you can move the other buildings around or whatever, and have the people sit essentially there, which kind of creates a park-like feel.
Yeah.
That's something you could consider. I don't know, but I think considering you're trying to use both ends of the pavilion, I'm not sure. But that you do have an amphitheater, so you could make that argument too. I don't know.
Yeah,
it seems like a lot of redundancy.
I think that point is well taken. I think we do need to take a look at how we're going to be programming the use of those areas and what makes sense there.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other comments. Dan or
No.
Art?
Other than I think the architects did a great job and the city did.
Okay.
I'll agree with that. The only thing I think we should really consider or make it that it's a big consideration is the parking garages. Just before Christmas, we went to Del Mar for the last races, and we all went to dinner. There was 12 of us, and Old Del Mar used to have no parking. They now have a parking garage. It's made such a big difference, and the whole downtown is similar to what we're trying to do here. And a lot of restaurants, a lot of shops, but you couldn't get to it. And coming from the racetrack, there's a lot of traffic, and a lot of those streets were blocked off. So if you wanted to go downtown for dinner, either you sat or waited for half an hour, 45 minutes, so you can make a left turn or a right turn. So now the whole idea is, okay, you can catch the shuttle or do something else, or just park in the parking garage and catch the shuttle to the racetrack, which that's the main event. So I think those are something to be really considered. I like the event barn. I think something like that needs to be really looked at because the Valley has lost two big events. Bacon and Barrels is leaving San Ynez Valley to go up to Madonna's Inn Event Center. And that's 1,500 people who come in to the Valley for 3 days, 2 or 3 days. And it's a 3-day event. And it brings a lot of money in it. So I think, the Chamber of Commerce needs to be looking at those type of events to bring it into that. And whether it's little, small, those are things that can draw people to downtown. And people stay. And, okay, you're walking, it's over at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, but then you're looking at 7 o'clock for a place to go to a restaurant. So I think all those things would be a good draw for downtown.
On top of that, I like the idea of asking about who's going to use the kiosks. What is their function? I mean, we've talked about art and food, but I think that you can really open it up. And if you can't have facilities where you can cook or actually make food, then what does that look like? So I think that's a really good idea to engage local business, local people, and see what they could use it for. Because if we don't need a kiosk in certain areas, we can make it a green area or parking or something like that. Then let's utilize the space in that way. But to mirror what everybody's saying, great job by everybody. It's really well done. That's all I got.
I said enough. I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking. So I thought we had a lot of good turnout. So thanks for coming. That's it.
And first meeting in February 11th, I believe, is when we will present this to the city council for their blessing to start actually preparing the specific plan, and that will be brought back for the third public workshop when we get that together.
Okay.
Do we need any motions or anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just input?
Yep. Okay, no communications. Any planning commissioner comments? No.
Not here.
Okay. Mark,
I can give you a brief one if you'd like.
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Council adopted the Airbnb ordinance to prohibit them, so that should be going into effect shortly.
Did that gentleman appeal?
Oh, no, he couldn't appeal. It went to council, so, but he never commented at the commission or the council level on it, so they are prohibited in Buellton. The Halber General Plan Amendment Zone Change was approved by the council. The one that we had problems getting a quorum on the last few months. It made it one time to the council on second reading next week. So.
We're talking about 12 times.
I wonder what I know what it is.
Okay, got to give her training on that sometimes. Live Oak is fully locked and loaded for the appeal next week. The staff report will be up on the website tomorrow.
Have you got any comment letters yet?
No comments. They haven't seen our arguments, but our city attorney and the CEQA attorney from their firm has done an excellent job documenting our arguments for it, and staff will be supporting the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval to deny the appeals. So all of that 200-page staff report with attachments is available to take a look at.
Unbelievable.
A lot of attachments associated with the staff report's only 26 pages, so. But it was
Late night reading.
yeah, very light reading. Crossroads is moving forward. Tractor Supply is trying to go for a February opening, so we're having monthly coordination meetings with the county and our grading inspectors and fire department to try to make sure everything's coordinated on all our projects.
Now, is Chipotle still on board?
As far as we know, but if they're not opening new businesses, they may just...
I mean, I've just heard rumors and people have been asking, and
As far as we know, it's not any reason that, from the city's perspective, it's more they're corporate and the problems they had.
But they're not locked in right now, or?
I'm not sure if they're locked in. I believe Habit is, and the building's pad is being formed right now for both of them. So they can still come in, but if corporate decides they're not opening any other restaurants because of the food poisoning issues they had, I can't control that. Starbucks has got their final certificate of occupancy. The noise wall is up to its required height, so that's taken care of. And the other buildings are going through their inspection process. Tilton, you can see, is underway. A lot of dirt being moved there, and the foundations poured on Hampton Inn. Rain, of course, is causing some little issues. We did have a little cave-in during the construction of across 246 in McMurray with the trench, and that's what caused some of the delays. They had to shore up the trench and then fill it in to make sure it was safe, but that was a construction issue, and it was kind of because of the rain. So they're going to have to fight the rain as they move forward. The condos have gotten permits for their foundations for their first 3 buildings, and so they'll be pouring those and then getting their framing up on those. So everything's moving forward that's in the process.
What about the park?
The park, during the rains, is being used as the temporary retention so flooding doesn't occur. So the grading kind of took a back seat to making sure we took care of the drainage. So that's coming along, and it will follow closely after the commercial. But
what about the senior housing?
Senior housing, they still haven't gotten their supplemental funding, so they're still on hold with that.
Too bad.
Okay.
And that is it.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. 8:30.